Good evening, and welcome to the virtual regular meeting of the Meridian Township Board. We are virtual according to a emergency order that was put into effect with regard to the pandemic. And we will start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's all please start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with that, we will call on the roll from our clerk and remind everyone that you have to indicate where you are located.
Supervisor Stika? I
am here and I'm in Meridian Township.
Kirk Guthrie is here, Meridian Township. Treasurer DeShane?
Here, and I'm in Meridian Township Hall, Meridian Township.
Trustee Jackson?
Here in Okemos, Meridian Township.
Trustee Opsmer?
Present and attending virtually from the city of Lansing.
Trustee Sunland?
Here, and I'm attending in Meridian Township.
And Trustee Wazinski?
I'm here and also in Meridian Township.
All right, all board members are present.
Excellent. Before we go any further, I'm just thinking that this is the 100th year of remembrance of a horrible event that occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'd like to take just a moment of silence to remember all the victims and the families of all those people that 100 years ago suffered so and since in many ways. Thank you. Okay, we now start with some presentations, and our first presentation is going to actually be from Lieutenant Bart Crane of our wonderful police force. He's going to do some introductions for us, I believe. Lieutenant?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that, sir. I'm here to introduce 4 new members of our department. We were lucky enough on this last Monday, May 24th, to swear in 4 new officers. That brings our total sworn officers up to 38. As always, we strive to hire the best candidates, and we have this group. I was lucky enough to be on the hiring group committee for these individuals, and I think we've got the best candidates out there. We've hired them, they've started, and they're already out there working hard for us. This is a larger group than normal when we introduce, so I'm going to introduce all of them and then give them an opportunity to say hello. First, I want to recognize Megan and Maggie Cole. They are sisters. I'm going to introduce them together because all of their information is pretty much the same. They used to be cadets for our police department. They did a great job for us. They were both Division I athletes here at Michigan State University. They've got law enforcement that runs in their family, so we're very happy to have them on board. We also have Bryant Martin. Bryant came to us from the Fowlerville area. He graduated from the Kalamazoo Valley Police Academy, and he's happy to be back in the area here. We're near where he grew up. And then the last on the list, but not the least, is Taya Catherwood. She's originally from Ohio. She moved into Michigan. She's living over in the Howell area. You will recognize Officer Catherwood walking around because she'll be the one that's always smiling. She's very happy to be here, very excited to work for the police department. So those are our 4 new employees. We're very happy to have them aboard, and we look forward to great things from all 4 of them.
Thank you, Lieutenant, and welcome to all 4 of you. As the father of identical twin sons, I can imagine that there's some interesting family history to talk about, the Cole sisters. In any event, welcome to all 4, and if you want to say a few words, I'll let you speak out.
Well, hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me? My name is Maggie. Nice to meet you all. I look forward to meeting you all in person sometime. I just wanted to get on here and say thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be a police officer in Meridian. Being an officer has been a dream of mine since I was a little girl, so my dream has really come true. I look forward to meeting you all and starting a great career here, so thank you again.
Megan, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Cole. Kind of the same thing as my sister. Just wanted to thank you guys for this great opportunity to work in such a great township. And I especially want to thank you for the opportunity to being sponsored in the academy. That was a great opportunity, and I really appreciate it. I look forward to meeting all of you. And yeah, thank you.
Bryant, do you want to speak up next?
Yeah, hi, nice to meet you guys. My name's Bryant Martin. I'm really excited to be here, and I just wanted to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to work here. It's a great community, and it's a great department, and I look forward to having my career here. So thank you.
And not least, but last, Taya.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Taya Catherwood.
Hey.
I just want to thank all of you guys personally. I'm very excited. I'm blessed for this opportunity. I can't wait to get out in the community and start meeting everyone. I already feel like a part of the family, and I just absolutely love it. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Well, we're all excited to have all four of you. Do any board members want to say anything or ask any questions? I think you're getting off. Oh, yep. You almost got off the hook easy. Trustee Wazinski.
No questions, just really excited you're here. Thank you for serving. And I do also look forward to meeting you all in person.
And our treasurer.
I want to say I had the privilege of attending their swearing-in ceremony last Monday, and it was a very nice event. We got to meet their families as well. And the Cole sisters' grandfather was there, and pinned the badge. I believe it was on Maggie, if I'm correct. But it was very nice to meet the families of all four of these officers. We're really excited to have you on board. Welcome to Meridian.
Ms. Jackson, I see you light up there. Yes, Trustee Jackson.
I would only add to what has already been said, welcome, and thank you for joining us. And I too look forward to meeting you as soon as possible in person.
Historically, before the COVID thing, we used to actually have you come to a meeting and we'd each shake your hand, but you probably got off easier then than you are tonight. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you all. And thanks for coming to the meeting and for joining us. And thank you, Lieutenant. Our next presentation is an introduction of our new assessor. Well, it's assessor candidate officially till we decide to make it official. Ashley Winstead. You know, this is very dear to my heart because under the law, technically the supervisor does the assessing. Of course, in a township like Meridian, that would be crazy. I don't know anything about it. We'd all be paying ridiculous taxes one way or another. But Ashley is coming to us with much expertise and a willingness to gain whatever expertise she still needs in order to fully qualify for, I believe it's called a fourth level. She's at the third now, but well on her way to the fourth. And we're going to miss Dave Lee because he served us extremely well along with East Lansing years, but he's decided to go back to just doing East Lansing. And we were very, very fortunate to find Ashley, and want to compliment Manager Walsh for his excellent searches and how well he does in finding people. Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Ashley Winstead. Just wanted to say I'm really excited about this opportunity. I actually live in Grand Blanc right now, so I'll be commuting. I'm used to a commute, so I don't mind that, but I have 4 kiddos, and my youngest is going to be going into 3rd grade. So maybe once she finishes school, I can move a little closer. But in the meantime, it'll be a bit of a commute for me.
Well, we have outstanding school districts here in our township. So.
Yes, you do.
Whether it's the Okemos, Hasler, the East Lansing portion, or even Williamson portion, you're going to have excellent education for those kids. Okay. Anyone have any questions or anything you want to ask Ms. Winstead? Oh, yeah, Manager Walsh, should have called on you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. We're really excited to have Ashley before the board this evening. She's a graduate of the University of Michigan Flint. She is a level 3 assessor, which is just one step below the master level, which is a level 4. As the supervisor pointed out, this township requires, because of our tax base and number of parcels, we require a master level or a level 4. They're very difficult to find. We went through an exhaustive search. The State Tax Commission does allow a waiver if we find a competent level 3 who immediately will enroll in the Level 4 Master Program and will successfully complete that in 2 years. We stand a great chance of getting a waiver from the State Tax Commission to have Ms. Winstead act in our, no pun intended, but in our stead as our assessor going forward. We will need to seek that waiver, and we'll be applying for that immediately if the board's approval to move forward this evening. So Ashley, for the past 3 years, has served as the City of Howell assessor. And we're just really, really pleased to have found her. She's going to be a great match. She's had 3 interviews with the township, one with Manager Perry and Director Tehoff and myself, one with the entire management team, and then finally one with just the assessing team. And yes, this all came about because we've had a long-term 11-year agreement with the City of East Lansing to share Mr. Lee's services. And it has become, we've reached a point, a fork in the road, where Mr. Lee has to go back full-time and handle his responsibilities in East Lansing, which has caused this vacancy in the township. So could be more excited and look forward to your vote later this evening. We found the right person to join our bus. Thank you.
All right. Any questions of the manager with regard to that? Well, we will have this on the agenda as per action is A tonight. We now go on to our favorite part of the year, and that is the report of the audit. Yo and Yo does our audit every year, and I'm sure that Miriam Madison, who works hard not only to keep all our finances straight throughout the year, but then works doubly hard trying to help the auditors with their job, would like to say something before the auditors speak.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Ellie Barnes. She's the partner at Yo and Yo that organized our audit and also our single audit this year. We did this all virtual. They were not on site, so it was all through a portal and transferring information back and forth. It was a complicated process this year, but we got through it, and I'm happy for Ellie to present the findings to the board tonight.
Ellie, the microphone is yours.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on your meeting this evening. I think I will see if I'm able to share the presentation with you so all can see it. There we go. So real quick, before I get started going through this, a huge thanks to Miriam and all the people on her end that she coordinates with. As she alluded to, this audit was 100% virtual, which does present some challenges. And this year there was a lot of newness going on as well, with different funding mechanisms and trying to spend some of those new dollars correctly. So great job from her and her team. And we're very much looking forward to being back on site in your building for next year's audit. Virtual can be done, but a township of your size, we really like being on site. So we will get started here with the presentation. We'll first start out going through some of the numbers. General fund revenues and transfers for 2020 totaled $23.4 million. You can see here the breakdown between the different categories of funding. So for your township, taxes makes up the most significant portion of revenue, coming in at $13.6 million or 59%. That category, it stays typically within about 1% of your total revenues from year to year. The prior year was 58%, so right in line with prior years. And then you'll see the next two largest categories, charges for services and state shared revenue, make up the remaining majority portion of those revenues. So for 2020, all of your revenue categories remain within 1% of the total that they were in 2019. Here we can see over the past 5 years, the trend in general fund revenues and the transfers. You'll see that revenues since 2016 have all been trending up each year. There was a larger increase there from 2017 to 2018, and that was due to a new millage being levied in that year. Since then, though, no new millages. From 2019 to 2020, there was an increase of approximately 430,000. And the majority of that is going to be related to increase in property tax revenue. So as those taxable values increase a little bit each year, you'll see that bump up in the revenue side as well. Moving on to the expenditure side, you'll see for 2020, there was about 23.5 million in general fund expenditures and transfers. Within the expenditure side, public safety is the most significant area you spend dollars in, accounting for about 54% or $12.7 million. And then the second largest category is going to be general government, this year coming in at 35% or 8.2 million. One thing to note on this slide, if you were to compare this to 2019's, you'll notice there is some more significant fluctuation in those percentages. And that is to be expected because 2020 is the year where the majority of the $2 million spent on the HVAC project are accounted for within that general government category. So because that 2 million is not something you see every year, that made the general government category more as a percentage of the total than it typically is. So in the previous year, general government was about 29% and public safety was about 60%. So I would expect next year we'll see those go back to kind of the normal percentages they had typically been at. Here's the 5-year trend for your general fund expenditures and transfers. Not always going up every year. You'll see 2019 expenditures were actually down slightly, and then they jumped up again here for 2020. Again, that sharper increase there from 2019 to 2020 is going to be related to that HVAC project. And then I've been breaking this out so you can see kind of what portion of your expenditures are related to the additional MERS contribution payments that you're making. So you'll see that for the last 4 years, you've been making your regular payments, but then also choosing to make an additional contribution. So for the last 3 years, that additional contribution has been $1.5 million. Here's general funds fund balance, broken down into a few different categories. You'll see the blue is what is going to be unassigned, so not set aside for any particular purpose, but just for future operations. The assigned portion is going to be related to amounts that you budget in your next fiscal year to use in excess of revenues that you anticipate to come in. So for your 2021 budget, you had anticipated that about 683,000 more in expenditures would be made than the revenues you're projecting to come in. And so in this financial statement, we show that as assigned fund balance. Now, things might change over the year and you might not use that fund balance, or you might use more, you might use less. That's okay. This is just a snapshot in time. So that's what we show. And then the gray piece is small, non-spendable fund balance. That's related to prepaid items. So that's going to be for expenses where you paid the cash out before 2020, but they're actually for expenditures that will be incurred during 2021 and are included in that year's budget. So that gives you your unassigned, that blue portion of fund balance is 9.3 million. So very healthy fund balance for a township of your size. And in case you're wondering why in 2019 that orange category is so much larger than in 2018 or 2020, That's because in that particular budget, you had anticipated using more fund balance for that HVAC project that happened in 2020. So just curious on that account. So very healthy fund balance, no concerns with how amounts are split into these categories. And then also, I've been providing you on the last full years so you can see what fund balance would have looked like in total if you had not made that particular year's additional MERS payment. So you can see that's kind of depicted by that blue box at the top of the bar chart. Okay, switching gears here a little bit to the water fund. Here you can see the blue line depicts total revenues. The red line is total expenses. So in those years where the blue line exceeds the red, you're adding to your fund net position, which is the case for all 5 of these years. For 2020, you added back about 1 million to net position in the water fund. So a healthy increase there to that fund. In this particular fund, we did do a restatement this year. There was a billing error that was found, and we'll talk about that here in a few more slides. But if you were to pull out your slides from last year and then look at what I have presented here for 2019, you would notice they're not quite exactly the same because of that restatement. So I just wanted to point that out. And then within your water fund, a measure of financial strength within this type of fund is also what your current assets less your current liabilities equal, which gives you working capital. And so you have working capital in the water fund of about 5.6 million at the end of 2020. So again, a healthy amount of working capital on hand for the township in this fund. Here we have the sewer fund. With the exception of 2016, the other 4 years, your revenues have exceeded your expenses. So that helps you have that positive working capital within this fund as well. So the total change in your net position this year was 1.1 million. And it was a little bit higher in the previous year, was about 1.5 million. So your revenues are strong and you're maintaining those expenses so that you have that working capital to put back into the system. And there's about $4 million in working capital in the sewer fund at the end of 2020. We'll take a look at a few of the longer term liabilities. Here's the information for the employees' retirement pension plan. So we have what's in the blue is the plan fiduciary net position, or basically the assets that have been set aside for this plan. And then in the red, we have the total pension liability, and that's going to be a number that's calculated by an actuary. So at the end of 2020, the total fiduciary net position, or that blue graph, is about 5.18 million. And your total pension liability was about 5.13 million. So this plan actually has what's called a net pension asset versus a net pension liability. So that means that the assets in the system at that date were enough to cover all of the calculated liability as of that date. So that is great news. That's like the gold standard for a plan to be 100% fully funded. So great work on the township's part for reaching that status with that plan. Then we have the Municipal Employee Retirement System plan, or the MERS plan. So this looks a little different. The plan fiduciary net position does not exceed that total pension liability for this fund, which is not all that uncommon. We see most of our clients within MERS are not 100% funded, but people are working their way towards getting there. And you've been putting in those additional contributions, so that helps. When the market is strong, that helps as well. So when we take the total pension liability and subtract out the assets that you do have on hand, we get a net pension liability. And so that was about 26.4 million for the current year and 27.36 million in 2019. So the net pension liability did increase some from the previous year. So over the past 5 years, I took a look at what your average level funded was, and that comes in at about 58.3%. And that is actually up from the previous 5-year rolling amount, which was 57.15%. So you are making progress there on increasing that funded percentage. And then switching gears from the pension to what we call OPEB, or other post-employment benefits. This is going to be the healthcare related side of this. Again, we report that fiduciary net position and the OPEB liability. So you'll see here that that fiduciary net position is just shy of the liability. So you're not quite 100% funded. I think we're $18,000 short of being 100% funded. So getting real close there with that plan. Okay, Miriam had mentioned the single audit this year. So not only did we do the normal financial statement audit that you're used to, we also did a single audit as well. And so this is where we take an in-depth look at federal dollars that are spent. And this year, the Coronavirus Relief Fund is the program that we tested. Those were the most significant federal dollars. And within all that testing, I know it was very new and there were a lot of things constantly changing on how to spend the money and how to document things. And given all of that, Miriam and her team did a great job. They had no federal award findings this year, which is, I generally think that's a challenge to accomplish that when you're not used to having a single audit. So for those governments who have a single audit every year, they're probably not expecting to have federal award findings. Generally, when we have a client who is their first single audit, maybe ever, or just in a long time, it's usually common that we do have some type of finding as it pertains to the federal awards, but not in your case. The township did great work here. So the financial statements and the single audit both received unmodified or clean audit opinions. So those are the opinions that you want us to issue on those financial statements. All right, we'll talk about a couple internal control matters. So we did have a material weakness this year for audit adjustments and a prior period adjustment. So I had alluded back on the water fund page that we made an adjustment to a prior period, that 2019 year. And what happened is there was a meter that ended up rolling over, and it just so happened to do it at the end of 2019. And the error was caught and an adjustment was made, but the adjustment was made in 2020 when it should have been moved back to 2019, because 2019 is where the revenue had previously been overstated. So that water fund was adjusted for that amount. And then we also, on just the audit adjustment side, had a fund where there was an amount that was paid in 2021, but should have been accrued back as an expenditure in 2020. And just based on that dollar amount, we had to consider that a material weakness within the system because your internal controls did not catch that. Now, that being said, I think a material weakness in two ways. I think of kind of one-off situations where there was just something new or different. And then I think of systemic issues where there are constantly problems. There are adjustments year after year after year. And so this material weakness in my mind falls into that first category of kind of being a one-off. So the water adjustment, that doesn't happen every day, and doesn't happen in those dollar amounts, even when there are adjustments. And then the audit adjustment for the accounts payable item, again, it was the only one that was found. The other items we tested were fine. So I do not believe there is a systemic issue, just a couple of processes to kind of tighten up. And I know I've talked with Miriam about kind of the plan in place and agree with some of the changes that she's made so that this won't happen going forward. And then there were no significant deficiencies this year. So that's good news. We did issue 2 management comments. The DDA fund has been in a deficit for a few years, and we just issue the comment so that everyone's aware that the deficit is out there. It was about 83,000 at the end of 2020, which was down from about 90,000 in the previous year. There's no deficit elimination plan needed to be filed with the state, but this is just so you understand that that deficit is out there, and to kind of bring it to your attention so that you can talk about that into the future and how rectifying that looks. And then the second item relates to federal policies and procedures. So in order to receive federal funds, there's something called uniform guidance that local governments and nonprofits too are required to follow. And that uniform guidance says that you have to have certain federal policies and procedures, written policies and procedures in place. And so this is something, again, if you haven't had a single audit regularly, you would not have known. So once you kind of flip over into that single audit mode, then we can identify this and then work with you to get it corrected. So while the township has many policies and procedures that are in writing, there are just some that require specific call outs to areas in the code. And so this is something I know Miriam will be working on putting into place. We provided her with some good examples, policies, a couple of manuals that she can take a look at and follow. So I don't see this as being an ongoing issue. I'm guessing this one will get resolved quite quickly. And with that, I would take any questions that you might have.
Okay, Manager Walsh, do you have any comments before we get to the questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Supervisor, for the opportunity. I just want to, some things can get lost when you get a report from an auditor. But if you recall, and I know all of you paid very close attention to this, but it's worth noting. If you recall, what was the general fund deficit expected for 2020? Because of the $2.2 million HVAC, if you recall, we had a $1.8 million general fund deficit for 2020. And it wasn't a $1.8 million deficit. Due to excellent planning by all of our team, I think the deficit was around $200,000 or $300,000. That's a significant, that's the most important thing you can get out of this entire audit. Our fund balance unassigned is $9.3 million on a roughly $20 million general fund budget. That's 45% general fund balance. Right now in the state, if you're 20 to 25% fund balance, you're considered a 4-star. If you're 25 to 30%, you're considered a 5-star. If you're 31 to 40% fund balance, you're in the top 10%. And if you're over 41% fund balance, you're in the top 5% in the state of Michigan. The township pension fund, let's talk about that for a second. Do you realize that in 2017, it was $1.3 million underfunded? And do you know that with proper planning and setting money aside, it's now 100% funding? That deficit for the township pension fund is gone. Let's talk about healthcare. You could pull that slide back up. Just 4 years ago, what was the deficit for our retiree healthcare, our OPEB? It was $4 million. And what is it now? It's $18,000 short of being 100% funded. And what about our MERS? It's still a struggle, But remember, just 3 or 4 years ago, we were 54% funded. We just got our report on Friday, our actuary report on MERS, and we're now 64% funded. So we're making great progress with that. The most important thing you can take away is how about the water and sewer fund? Since Manager Perry arrived in 2015, you realize we were just operating at a net experience prior to 2015. And look what's happened to our water and sewer funds in the position that we're in now in the last 5 years. So this is just a great report on the work of the entire team led by our finance director, Mary Madison, Bernie Faulkner, our assistant finance director. This is just a gold star report tonight. The most important thing to take away though is a planned $1.8 million deficit down to around 200,000 or 300,000. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manager. Now back to those questions from trustees and board members. You had your hands up. Yes, Mr. Treasurer DeShane.
Thank you. First of all, I want to commend Manager Walsh and Director Madison on this clean audit. Good news. The fact that our fund balance is 45% of our general budget is awesome. The fact we were able to reduce our deficit 1.8 million to 200,000. This is a good financial statement for us, and I'm really encouraged by it. And I know as a director myself, if I go into the manager's office or Director Madison's office with a great idea that needs some funding, the question is it in the budget and can we afford it? I mean, so if it's not in the budget, it's not going to get funded in this township. We stick with our budget, we follow it, except in the case of emergencies. I've come to learn that. I do have a question for our auditor though, regarding the management comments. And that was in the past, they have mentioned the DDA deficit. We know the DDA has a deficit. In fact, the DDA has discussed this and have even talked of paying it off. They actually came close to doing that a couple of years ago. But Allie, in the past, you've mentioned our capital assets policy and our capital assets record keeping. Did this just fall off your management comments because you mentioned it once, or have we improved those tracking and the policy procedure that we didn't have before?
Excellent question. That fell off, so to speak, because the township did implement controls. They actually hired our firm to help them come up with a tracking system. We have a software that's easy to use. It takes some work getting things set up, especially when it comes over from multiple tabs and spreadsheets. But there's a much better system in place and no more manual having to adjust Excel spreadsheets to make sure the numbers are right. New assets are imported into the system each year and a nice report is generated, and Miriam or whoever she designates on her team are then able to go through and just tell us what items need to be disposed of. So that there was corrective action taken, which is why that fell off the comment.
Good, thank you. And again, Miriam, the whole management team, great job. This audit is the report card, if you will, for how well we are being run from a financial point of view. And clearly this is an A+ report card. So we have a lot to be proud of here that our team is performing so well.
Yes, sir. Yes, Trustee.
Thank you, Supervisor Stika, and thank you, Allie, for the presentation. One question for staff, perhaps Deputy Manager Perry might know it, or Manager Walsh. Do we know what interest we're paying on the DDA loans for the streetlights?
You mean what interest they're paying us?
Well, the DDA is paying down the loan, so what interest are they paying on that?
Yeah, to the township. Miriam?
It's a 3%.
So the cost itself isn't too substantial. What's still outstanding on the principal?
124,500.
Yeah, so my thought would be, we could just, I forget, are the funds sitting, Miriam, are they sitting in the DDA's fund to pay down? Or do we have to give them funds to pay the remainder down if we wished to do that?
If you wish to forgive the loan, then we would do some journal entries to make that loan go away. Right now, they don't have enough cash balance to pay off that fund. So if you choose to forgive the loan, then we would do journal entries to write that off.
So we'd have to forgive the loan and give them additional funds from the general fund to make the final payment if we wanted to.
No.
No?
No,
Okay,
you wouldn't
so they
have to give,
sufficient funds.
yeah, we wouldn't have, they have cash right now. They think a $50,000 cash balance. So they have cash. It's just not enough to pay off the loan. That's what's causing the deficit. So their assets are less than what that liability, the loan dollar amount. That's where the deficit is coming in.
Okay.
The loan is actually from the township, Dan. It's not from
Yeah,
outside.
from the Meyer tax. We did the streetlights, then Meyer appealed their tax assessment. And so we had to loan them the money. But we still only have 50,000 cash sitting in there. So if we wanted to pay the whole thing down, I'm just wondering if it makes sense financially for the township. I don't know why we're paying 3% interest on such a small, capital investment. We could forgive the loan and just absolve ourselves of the 3% interest is my thought, especially thinking on it from last week when we got the DDA report, or several weeks ago.
And that is actually something that has come up at the DDA for the last 6 months or so. The possibility of the township perhaps forgiving that loan for them. And that was alluded to by the treasurer as well as yourself just now. I think it's something we should put on the agenda for a future action, potential action.
Thoughts on actually just paying down the balance from staff or the supervisor?
I'm sorry?
Thoughts on just paying the balance down? I mean, we're not going to get 3% if we invest those funds sitting in our general fund. So shouldn't we just get rid of that payment?
There would be a matter of just forgiving the loan. Miriam, you want to explain that?
Yeah, it's not like we have a loan sitting at a bank somewhere.
Oh, it's a loan. Okay, it's their loan to our general fund. Oh, okay.
Correct.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that was duplicative. I thought okay. So,
I can tell where you were going. You had the other thought in mind. Yeah.
yeah, I thought they had a loan with a third party.
No.
And we were having to front them the money into the DDA. So yeah, then I would just support DDA for forgiving the DDA and not making them pay 3% interest to the township in that event. Now I'm clear. Thank you.
Excellent point, an excellent thing that we should look at in the near future. Anyone else? Questions for the auditor, for Miriam, for the manager? Points you want to raise? I would just ask, just as a follow-up on that, when you talk about the DDA deficit, Ms. Barnes, that really is the source of the ultimate source of that deficit, is it not?
It is, because those funds were expended when there wasn't enough revenues and fund balance to cover those initially.
And can you explain what a federal award finding is?
So that would be, okay, let's say you have the coronavirus relief fund dollars coming in, and there are specific categories of expenditures that you're allowed to use those funds on. And let's say you chose to spend money on something outside of those approved categories, and we caught it in our testing. That would be something that would be a federal award finding, because it's very specific to that actual grant and how those dollars were spent.
So that finding then would result in us having to pay some money back, is that what you're saying?
Potentially, yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes if there's a finding, you may have to pay some back.
Right, okay. But that is not a problem at this point?
Correct.
Okay, good. Last thing I want to do is my 22 years on the Okemos School Board, where we had a small but what was considered for schools a healthy fund balance. We would probably all die of laughter and exhilaration to have a 45% fund balance. We were lucky if we had, less than 10% fund balance, and I think the township is sitting very well with regard to fund balance. Anyone else? Well, thank you for that audit, and thank you, Miriam, for all your incredible work and your staff, everyone at the township, not just in your office, but throughout the township, everyone who works so hard to make sure the dollars go to the right place and are spent correctly. Manager Walsh, who supervises all of this from the seat above. We're very thankful and thankful for Yo and Yo's continuing watchfulness over us. And if there's no other comments, we'll move on. Thank you. All right, we next have citizens. I sound like the guy in Police Academy. Citizens addressing agenda items and non-agenda items. And we have 3 minutes per speaker. We ask that they be very appropriate in their remarks, that they address the board as a whole, not individuals. They don't address other people, that they stick to the issues as much as possible. And I would ask Mr. Geeves if he has a number of speakers ready. And you start out with your name and address, by the way.
Yes, sir. Actually, we have a couple of callers, and there are already people who have raised their hand in the attendee area. If there are other people who wish to speak, go ahead. Please raise your hand at any time. We will call you in the order your hand was raised. But I'm going to start with the caller. Ma'am, can you please state your name and address for the public record, and then you're ready to address the Township Board.
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Jody Bond, and I live at 1502 Jolly Road. And I live there currently with my husband and my 2 children, who both attend Okemos Public Schools. I've probably lived in the Meridian Township area for over 10 years now. I want to express my family's support for the rezoning request for Sparrow's proposed medical facility along Jolly Road. We love Meridian Township and been pleased with the thoughtful development over the years to make Meridian Township a prime community. One thing that is missing is healthcare services, especially in the southern part of the township. Access to healthcare services is something that is important to everyone, and in times of an emergency or injury, minutes really matter. During the May 18th meeting, I heard a number of positive comments about how our community would benefit from Sparrow's proposed plan, and I couldn't agree more. High-quality health care provided in our township, access to more convenient services for the long-term care facilities in the township, and reduced travel times for Meridian Township Fire and EMS would benefit all of Meridian Township's 43,000 residents. I am really impressed with the conditions that Sparrow has offered to reduce the impact to the neighbors on Kansas Road. Removing access points on Kansas Road to eliminate traffic to this facility and providing township water connection is really remarkable in my opinion, and underscores Sparrow's commitment and investment in our community and neighborhood. This facility and services would be an asset to Meridian Township, and I respectfully ask Township trustees to consider the benefits to our entire community and approve this rezoning request. Thank you so much for listening and your time.
Thank you. Well within the 3 minutes. Mr. Geeves.
Next, we have a Zoom caller identified as Dr. Shireen Abrizi. Please state your name and address for the public record.
Yes, good evening.
You're echoing. You might have something on that.
Yeah, my husband's computer. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm Shireen Abrizi, Okemos residence for 11 years, co-owner of 3566 Kansas Road and 3917 Sheldrick Avenue in Okemos. I'm discussing agenda item 12B, the proposal to rezone two residential parcels on Kansas Road into professional office designation. This proposal submitted by Sparrow will cause suffering to residents on Kansas, Indiana, and Robbins Way. To Sparrow team, I say, if the reason for this proposal is providing health services, then look for another location that doesn't disturb any neighbors. My husband, John, and I saw several large commercial properties off Jolly about quarter mile west from Kansas at James Phillips Street. Huge and appropriate. To my dear board, I say there is also McLaren Hospital being completed and is 8 minutes away from Kansas Road. Why approve another facility on the expense of Okemos neighborhoods? Rezoning residential parcels to office and allowing a developer to destroy a neighborhood is not a sound decision. The vast majority of residents on Kansas and Indiana roads have spoken, and they vehemently oppose this proposal as reflected in our written petition, as well as our calls into your meetings. Spot rezoning these two residential parcels is detrimental. It will destroy the fauna. It will significantly disrupt and disturb the tranquility and safety of the neighborhood's children and the elderly. It will depreciate the value of our home, where it's just the next door house to that proposed facility. It will depreciate the value of our home and other homes, despite the green zone and access to city water Sparrow is promising. This proposal includes 24/7 medical emergency services. Who would want to live next to it? I urge you to put the welfare of this neighborhood first, regardless of the promises provided in this developer's proposals. Once the rezoning is granted, the parcels are fair game. What if Sparrow decides to close it down in a few years? Who knows what the building will be used for? Think about the children playing in their backyards, walking to catch the school bus. Think of the disruption this facility will cause to the residents and their quiet and safe lives. They deserve to feel safe, cared for, and appreciated by all of you, board members. Instead of reducing Kansas Street by 2 residential parcels, please keep the current zoning designation to support building additional housing, more taxpayers, developing the area into a more attractive and desired neighborhood.
Sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Dr. Breezy is followed by a Zoom caller identified as John Faishney.
Yeah.
Yes, John Fakeney, MD, Dr. Freebie, Dr. Breezy's husband. We've had a lot of conversation, and I know perhaps sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not good. I think you folks understand it's not just our concerns, it's the concerns of many others in terms of traffic, in terms of congestion, in terms of safety, in terms of quietude, perhaps is the most important. And so why is Sparrow, the other thing is just lack of understanding, right from the start, we were not informed about what was true. It was said professional office building when in fact it was freestanding emergency room. And so the faith and the trust, that should have occurred from the outset was blocked and disturbed by the way Sparrow began. And why does Sparrow want to do this project? We have no problem with freestanding emergency rooms that are rational, that make sense in the community, that all the community members agree with, where there isn't so much, consternation and disagreement about where it should be, et cetera, et cetera. And that sort of thing should be a discussion between the community members, not a large corporate entity forcing themselves upon a particular plot of land. Like, where is the gorilla going to sit on the bus? Wherever it wants to. Sparrow wants the favorable payer mix of the Meridian Township people, which is reasonable. They'll make more money per patient. Secondly, Sparrow wants to block the natural movement of patients to the new facility McLaren is making, which is going to be a university hospital, 8 minutes away from Jolly Road, where we are, not Jolly, but Kansas Road, where this facility is being planned, only 8 minutes. As a physician, if I feel that I have a serious illness I would rather go to a hospital-based emergency room. If I have chest pain and a heart attack, I want to have a cardiologist see me and set up an emergency cardiac catheterization if it looks like this is required. Or if I have an abdominal problem, I don't want to be told to see my physician the next day. I want to be seen by the general surgeon, or I want to be seen by the gastroenterologist. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Fashney will be followed by Lena Breezy. Sorry.
Hi, we're currently living at 3566 Kansas Road. My name's Celine Tabrizi, and I live with my fiance, Alex, and we were fortunate enough to live here because my parents purchased this property as an investment. And we were kind of drawn to it because of course, living in Okemos, we love the environment, but also the fact that it gave us opportunity to be in that kind of urban city life, but also we have land and it's like private. It's not necessarily a neighborhood. And that's why we were drawn to it. So I feel as though building an emergency building or structure right next to us, it's just not, I don't think, conducive. I mean, if we plan to have like a family, I don't see how that could be like the best environment for a child to, like my mom had said, walk to the street to catch the bus or to be playing out back. I know that they had mentioned a buffer, but I just don't see how it's, I feel like there's so many other ways that they could plan this out, or there could be other more like conducive things to build there instead of an emergency building, perhaps building other homes or further developing this area. Because I'm sure that younger families will probably want to live here, and I don't think they would be so inclined to live next to the building. But we hope that you really take this into consideration. I know it's what benefits the greater community, but I feel that there's a better way to go about doing this. Thank you.
By the way, you left out your address at the beginning, please.
Oh, 3566 Kansas Road.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker?
We do. Next will be the Zoom caller identified as Aubrey Holmes.
Go ahead, Aubrey. They're still on mute, whoever they are. Ms. Holmes or Mr. Holmes? Can we go to the next one while they figure out how to do the?
I think we're going to go on to Peter Lupa.
And I'll just mention that Holmes was muted, so they could figure out how to do that. Go ahead, Peter Lupa.
Yes, good afternoon. So I'm from 3575 Kansas Road. So directly, basically adjacent to the proposed project. I was very skeptical initially about the project. Wanted to see details. I've seen that the investor Sparrow did take the input of, at least I'm speaking for myself, the water. I think it is a big deal because I've been already in the neighborhood for 6 years. My Income County water test results failed twice, and I've been forced to install reverse osmosis system for filtration, which isn't really the best long-term solution for the welfare of people on Kansas Road. Short-term, yes, but long-term, no. I was really kind of the pros and cons. Safety. I feel like the current situation with Midwest, I love the business, but I feel like, equipment directly stored outside, often in high piles, right on the road. If children work to school, I'm just not convinced that this is the safest environment. and a new hospital with, you know, meeting code requirements and maybe safer environment, in my opinion. Lastly, I think what also sold me was removing the access to the Kansas Road. Currently, there are a lot of cars when you walk into Jolly Road, coming and going onto the industrial business. And if any business, the new business, stays entirely off Kansas Road, I think in the long term, it will make the Kansas actually more residential road, safer road. Lastly, I love landscaping, and I feel like 70 feet of buffer. There's zero landscaping right now by Midwest. There is zero landscaping on the empty homes. If landscaping is provided to the north or to the west, I think it may beautify the neighborhood. Lastly, I think with the better curve appearance, with the municipal safe water, there is a plenty of land to the north, and there may be more families.
Your time is up, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have a caller. Ma'am, you can state your name and address for the public record and then address the township board.
Good evening. This is Aubrey Holmes at 34 Broad Street, Charleston, South Carolina, 29401. I am with Ms. Packett. We're with Okemos IL Investors LLC. Has an application before you all tonight to rezone 2 parcels from C2 commercial to RA single family medium density for senior housing use. I just want to introduce myself and our team. I'm the Senior Development Manager with Ms. Packett. On the phone is Lynn Bishop, the Senior Vice President of Development and Construction, Michelle Sons, Development Manager, and the Civil Engineer, Julian, is also on the line. If you all have any questions later on, our item number is 13A for the rezoning.
Thank you. As you indicated, if you stay around, some board members may have some questions for you at that time. Thank you. Do we have the Holmes caller back or not?
That was actually the Holmes caller right there, I believe, sir.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm going to see if I can talk.
If you all have any questions or anything, we're happy to answer them, but didn't want to waste any more time.
Thank you. Any other callers, Mr. Geeves?
We have Brent Belton addressed as a Zoom call.
Okay. Brent? You're on Zoom. I mean, you're on mute. Brent. There you go.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Name and
It's Brent Belton. I live at 2470 Robbins Way. Speaking about the proposal of putting a Sparrow building at the end of Kansas Road near Jolly. Again, I don't have this specific proposal. Heard about this proposal actually over the last few days. Someone had left something on my door. I am actually an emergency physician, and I can speak from experience working in the ERs in Lansing, both McLaren and Sparrow, as well as other emergency departments, which are smaller in the local area. I will tell you that working in the emergency department is one of the most dangerous places for people to work. The reason for that is when you have 24/7 access to care and you are bound by EMTALA, which is the federal law, which states every treatment, every patient must have a medical screening examination, it does pose a danger, as there may be, and frequently are, psychiatric patients which may come into that facility. Many smaller facilities, emergency departments included, 2 of which that I've recently worked at, do not have security available. It simply costs too much money. Places like Sparrow and the University Hospital in McLaren obviously are going to have security available. Should one of those patients escape, which when security is not available, they do, and they do frequently, they're Their option are go out onto Jolly Road where there's plenty of traffic, or to come down Kansas Road and potentially cause an issue. I have no problem with family practice office, internal medicine, dental office, urology clinic, what have you. Emergency department is a whole other issue. And it does pose a significant danger to the residents living in that area. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone does have any about
Your time.
emergency department.
We thank you very much. Mr. Gibbies?
Mr. Felton will be followed by a caller. Ma'am, go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Just nod.
Yes.
Okay, this is Joelle Ackerman, 3521 Indiana Road. I am opposed to an ER and anything else north of the current business. You know, this is like a quiet neighborhood. That's what people wanted, or they wouldn't live here. And often when somebody's in the ER or whatever, their family members are wandering around outside. So I agree with safety issues. And I'm not sure why everybody on the recommending committee opposed it, why we're even considering it at this time. But the safety issue of people wandering around, and they're going to turn down Kansas because they're going to miss the first entrance to go in there. So I am highly opposed. The light pollution, the noise pollution, everything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ackerman will be followed by the Zoom caller, Steve Freemeyer.
You're on mute. There you
Hello?
go. Yes.
Hi, my name is Steve Freemeyer. I live at 3622 Kansas Road, and I have for the last 27 years. I'm opposed to the development of the Sparrow project. This goes way beyond a professional office. We're talking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. We get no break. Your PO is going to be 9 to 5, weekends off. We don't get a break. I happen to have to go to the ER on Saturday night, and I had to wait for 3 hours, and I watched people get released from the ER, and they're sleeping in chairs, they're drunk, they were handcuffed, and then the hospital security comes out and says, you can't stay here, and they boot them out the door. Where are they going to go? So it is a safety issue. It's a quality of life issue. We have this nuisance at the end of the road, which is going to create traffic, noise, you name it, and it's going to draw riffraff, you know, looking for a place that's warm to stay or get discharged and have no place to go. There are plenty of other locations, namely right across the street is an empty medical facility that is 27,000 square feet. Sparrow wants to build a 30,000 square foot facility. What's 3,000 feet? Sparrow owns a property at 4440 Hagedorn Road. It's a large empty building. It's 3 miles away from this particular location at Kansas and Jolly. Sparrow is in bed with MSU. There's a large cornfield at the corner of Hagedorn and Jolly. I'm sure MSU would love to donate that land to Sparrow so they can build a great big huge mega complex if they choose. McLaren is only 8 miles away, as already mentioned. I haven't seen anything different than what I heard at the meeting at Midwest Power Equipment, but there's 300 foot of footage. Is the road commission going to allow another curb cut? I don't think they are. Not in that amount of distance. So the alternative is going to be come in on Kansas Road. I went through it with this board. A lot of you look familiar. I know, Ron, you were there. Miss Jackson, you were there with the Evolution Project. And the developers come in and they make these grand promises and gestures. And if you remember back with the Evolution Project, we were promised a grocery store and we were promised a community center. And you know, as the board, those things are not there today.
Thank you. Your time is up, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, dang. All right. Thank you.
We have a caller on the line. Ma'am, go ahead. You can state your name and address for the public record, and then you're on with the Township Board.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Sharon Morissette, and I live at 3531 Indiana Road. I've called before. I'm very much opposed to this rezoning. My husband and I have been here for 40 years. We are blessed to have neighbors that we have been here together with for 40 years. We've raised our children here. We are blessed to be able to help raise our grandchildren, babysit them and such. It's a quiet, we felt like we were living in the country, and but yet we were accessible to things. Through the years, of course, stuff changes. That's good. I understand that. We need to grow, change, and prosper. Jolly Road has gotten nothing but busier, and I'm sure you can hear the road in the background. Our daughter had her car totaled coming home from the high school, trying to turn left onto Indiana Road. Now, of course, they've changed the road for the third time since I've lived here, Jolly. So that's my concern, is keeping the rural feel that we've had here. People didn't even know that there were houses down these roads. I talk about the light pollution, and I listened to the meeting afterwards, and they talk about how Meridian Township has really good rules for the lights, and I respect that. But where there are no lights, there's no light pollution. No matter what kind of lights you put up, there's going to be more light. So that's secondly. The safety, being able to walk up and down Kansas Road has been a joy of our life, being able to walk in a rural area. So yes, I'm very much opposed to more blacktop, more buildings. Sparrow can find another place to put their building. I have nothing against Sparrow. I just think that Meridian Township has a lot of empty space that isn't being used. If the building's not right, tear it down and build a new one. But you don't need to come into our neighborhood. If you took an aerial view of this area, we are a neighborhood that now we have more houses around us. It's lovely. So please think about the people that have been here and that are coming and that want to grow their families here. It's a beautiful place. Please leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We have, it looks like Joel Ackerman, who may have phoned in as well. I'm going to allow you to talk, but if you're the same person who was speaking before, public comment is usually only allowed one time, and you're currently muted if you want to identify yourself. And then I've got another call I'm going to grab while we clarify.
Joel Ackerman, have you spoken already? You're on mute.
Sorry, I already spoke through the phone.
Right.
Okay,
There's another opportunity at the end of our meeting to speak.
In that case, we are going to put the next caller on the line. Go ahead, please state your name and address for the public record, and then you're on the air with the Township Board.
Hi, my name is Alex. I live on Kansas Road 3566, and I personally oppose this development project because of all the safety issues, as Brad from India, from the other street that just called in and mentioned. Light pollution, and that's one thing. but I am really concerned about the safety because my fiance and I we just moved here and we're planning to grow a family, you know, because we love this community. We love the nice environment around here, the school. And my first question would be for the developer that, you know, who is going to be liable? You know, I mean, you get all sorts of people mentally ill or whatsoever come to the hospital. And like Brad said, that if they get out, they have only two options. They can come to Kansas Street or they can go on Jolly. And my second question for those who are in favor of this project moving on would be that would you agree if you had an emergency room built right next to your house, and for those people who are really in favor of this project, I encourage them to think about and put yourself in our shoe and see if you would still agree. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have no other callers and no other raised hands at this time, sir.
All right, thank you. Then we're ready to move on our agenda. And our next matter is the Township Manager's Report. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I know you've got a long agenda ahead of you, so I'm going to be very brief tonight. I just wanted to welcome Director of Community Planning and Development, Tim Schmidt, aboard. This is his first meeting as our new director, and I want to welcome him. The local roads program is underway. It's beginning in Tacoma Hills this week. I want to thank the supervisor for his work with Consumers Energy. We had a meeting last week on a project that's beginning in the Briarwood neighborhood, and all is going well. Thank you to all those who responded about the survey. It'll be on for June 15th for more discussion. I want to thank the clerk Guthrie, for her Memorial Day service that she orchestrated and put on with our team on yesterday. And the township is back to full operations and full service. We're open and everyone's back to work. There's no more work from home program effective. Today, the EDC meets on Thursday morning at 7:30. And it was very inspiring for me to be a small part of this township to see Lieutenant Crane introduce 4 new officers with 75% of them being female. That's a really cool place to be. So thank you for that. And there's a lot of other things, but I'll be brief this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for the manager before we move on? Oh, yes, Trustee Officer.
Yeah, and I do apologize because we do have a long meeting, but it just kind of dawned on me tonight that I wanted to follow up on one inquiry that we did get, Manager Walsh and probably Deputy Manager Perry on this one. The Skyline Hills neighborhood had written us a while back about safety concerns on the street. And with that being on the 2021 road plan, I was just wondering what conversations have taken place with the neighborhood so far.
What was the specific concern regarding safety?
They had a neighborhood meeting and it was regarding speed. I know it was assigned to Chief Plaga and he's not with us this evening. So those concerns, there may not be a report, but I just wanted to flag it because I did happen to find it and it crossed my radar again this evening when I was searching for different information in my email.
Yeah, the email came from, I believe the email came from Jeff Thompson.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And that's been passed on to actually to the county, and the county road director, Mr. Conklin, is in communication with Mr. Thompson about what can and cannot be done on Skyline.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the manager before we move on? Okay. Then we will go on to board member reports of activities and announcements from board members. Any reports to make today? Treasurer.
Thank you, Supervisor. Rather than making my usual report of treasurer activities, I'd like to take this moment to make a more personal comment. I want to thank the Meridian Township staff and board and the entire community that have been so helpful to me and my family these past few weeks following the death of my daughter, Marianne. You've all been helped us so very much. In particular, I want to thank all of the people who contributed to Meridian Care, the Meridian Cares Fund in her name to help prevent homelessness. To date, 130 people have donated to that fund, and Dollar reports over $11,300 have been received. Thank you all so very much for your support of this fund, and it's a great tribute to the memory of my daughter. Thank you again to all of you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Any other board members? Reports of activities or announcements? Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Supervisor. I will try to be quick myself. I've been missing for a little bit, so I have a few things to report. Specifically on the Environmental Commission, we meet tomorrow at 7 p.m. We've got an update on our green grants. The Montessori Radmore greenhouse renovation is almost complete, and the children actually have planting underway. They have planted inside the greenhouse a pet snacks bed that's full of assortments of kales and chards and lettuces for their classroom pets. They will be next working on planting flowers in beds in the rest of the vegetables. This is an elementary school, and there's a group of girls who installed the water line system and are working out the kinks with the new parts and tubing. Half the beds have water, the other ones are working to be completed. Director at Radmore stated that this project's been great to work with upper elementary children because there's a lot of engineering and problem solving. The girls had to measure the area, work with multiple different types of connectors, and create a correct flow for the planting area. So on time and on budget. I don't have an update for Hazlitt Middle School. I'll have one for the next board meeting. As far as the tree team, volunteers and the green team have helped distribute nearly more than 300 trees just in May at the farmers market. In addition, the green team also recycled 100 bikes on May 22nd with help from MSU Bikes, Share a Bike, and volunteers. During that time, they also distributed information on pollution prevention, recycling, and eco-friendly landscaping. They've been doing a lot. They've been doing weeding and mulching at the Hidden River Rain Garden. They'll continue again this Friday at noon for about an hour. They indicated there's an abundance of native pollinator plants popping up all over. This was interesting. The Green Neighbors Network continues to grow with more than 50 subscribers representing over 24 neighborhoods. So that's fantastic. Lots of discussions happening there. We have a Groundwater Management Board meeting tomorrow morning, and a letter of support was submitted to Senate Majority Leader Shirkey and Speaker of the House Wentworth to appropriate funds to support the Water Use Advisory Council, and most specifically to update the Michigan Geologic Survey. Other than that, that's about all I have to say this evening.
Thank you. Last call for board member reports and activities. It's Trustee Obster.
Yes, a very brief and quick report that the Transportation Commission did meet late last month, and we did have a second overview and review and discussion on the Pathway Master Plan update. And I believe Deputy Manager Perry has made his rounds through just about every board and commission here in the township to seek out and obtain their input. And that should be coming back to the board as one of our 2021 goals pretty quickly here. Thank you.
Trustee Jackson, I think I saw your hand also.
Yes, I would just report that on the 25th of May, I attended the monthly board meeting for the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. And at this point, I would report that this group is going through a federal certification process by the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration. And thus there is an opportunity for the public and anyone else interested and involved with and working with this organization to comment on their experiences. with the transportation planning process in the area and with the possibility of winning a $100 gift card. And so if you go to the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission website, you will find access to that online questionnaire and be able to participate in the certification process.
Oh, Clerk Guthrie.
I want to say thank you to the community members who attended the Memorial Day event yesterday. We had between 100 and 150 participants. And I also want to particularly thank the Meridian Community Band, the Flags Over Meridian program, Pastor Dave Davis, who provided the benediction, Tom Cooper, who is a retired Air Force captain who gave an excellent presentation, the Scout troops who presented the flags, and Terry Carroll as well, who, as you know, is our local bagpiper. And so I just want to, I want to thank everyone for attending the event and for participating, and those who organized it, because it certainly wasn't me who organized it. It was all of the people I mentioned and thanked who organized this event. And I'm very grateful for their participation.
Well, I'm sure you had something to do with it, Clerk, and we appreciate the effort. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we're going to move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Trustee Wazinski?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Trustee Jackson?
Support.
Okay. Any motions to amend anything? All right, then we need a vote on approving the agenda.
Trustee Absmer?
Hold on real quick. Did Clerk Guthrie not want to add an agenda item this evening?
Oh, but okay. We actually do have a updated agenda that includes that. And you may not have picked it up early enough to print it. Yeah, it is now 12G, and that's a resolution concerning a Pride Month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. All right, I'm sorry. We're back to the vote. Clerk Guthrie.
Trustee Absmer?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Supervisor Stajka?
Yes.
Trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
And Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we next have our consent agenda. It's communications, the minutes of the May 6th virtual regular board meeting, and the bills. Is there a motion? Treasurer DeShane.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Is there support? Supported by Trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Any need to comment on the minutes or anything?
No.
If not, we need a vote.
All right, Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Supervisor Stajka?
Yes.
Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
Trustee Absmer?
Yes.
And Trustee Jackson, motion
Yes.
carries. Oh, sorry. I didn't wait for your yes, but I did hear, I'm sorry. Motion carries 7-0.
The eye was quicker than the ear that time.
Yes.
Okay. We have no questions for the attorney. We have no hearings. We now move on to our action items. And the first one is the appointment of the new assessor. I need a motion. Trustee Jackson.
I move to support the township manager's recommendation to appoint Ashley J. Winstead as township assessor with a starting date to be determined by the administration.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Absmer. Any comments, Ms. Jackson?
No, except that I would offer a welcome to Ms. Winstead and I look forward to working with her in the township in her capacity as assessor and training, maybe.
She'll still be the assessor and she'll also be training for a higher level. Yep. Anyone else? Yes, trustee Wazinski.
Just want to also welcome Ms. Winstead. And I want to thank Manager Walsh. I know that this was a really difficult, I guess, trial and tribulation to find Ms. Winstead. And I appreciate you going outside the box and giving Ms. Winstead an opportunity and taking the extra steps. So appreciate that.
Treasurer and then the clerk.
I too want to thank the manager for excellent find here and Ms. Winstead. This is the second really big position that he has filled here in just a couple of months. We're really excited about having Tim on board to replace the legendary Mark Kieselbach, and now Ashley on board to replace Dave Lee. I did notice, Ms. Winstead, that you have a background in education. You taught for a few years. You're going to fit in really well here in Meridian Township because education is just the top priority of our residents, and it's why they move here. If you want to comment about your career change, moving from education to assessing.
Well, you know, I really enjoyed teaching, and it was a good fit for a while. And I was a math teacher for a long time, but I just knew after about 10 years that it was a little bit less and less about the teaching and a little bit more about all the other things. And then my heart just wasn't in it. So it was time to look for another career. So.
May I ask what level of math you taught?
Middle school math.
Ah, very good.
That was always an adventure.
I know, yeah. Ms. Guthrie, you were next, I believe.
Thank you, Supervisor Steik. I want to welcome Ms. Winstead to the team and wish you good luck on obtaining your level 4 assessor. I don't know if it's called a title or I don't know what they call it. So certification, or you know way more than I do, and thank goodness for that.
It's a certification.
Certification. So I want to wish you good luck on that. When Dave Lee said he was retiring, and my heart went out to Manager Walsh for trying to have to go out and find someone. And I've enjoyed meeting you through Zoom. I look forward to meeting you in person, and glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Any other board members? Mr. Walsh, you have anything you want to add?
I just want to thank Director Tehoff and Manager Perry, who served on the search committee, and the recommendation that came from the way we found Ashley was actually Mr. Schmidt said, if you're looking for a great assessor, I know one and how. So you ought to call Ashley. And that's how it started. And 3 dates later, here we are. So I just appreciate everyone's help on this. It's been a great recruitment, and we found a star, and we're very pleased about that. Thank you very much.
Yes, welcome, welcome. All right, we need a vote.
All right, Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
And Supervisor Steika?
I vote yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you and welcome aboard. Hopefully the tax commission will go along with it, and we're looking forward to a long association with Ashley. Okay.
Thank you.
Our next item then is 12B, rezoning 21020, the Martin Investment Properties, Inc. Rezone approximately 6 acres on the north side of Jolly Road and the east of Kansas Road from I or industrial to RA single medium density to PO professional and office. And this is the introduction. And for a quick explanation, when we do a zoning ordinance change, you have introduction, and then we have it back again for action if it does pass for adoption. So there's more bites at the apple, so to speak. Okay, we need a motion. Trustee Opsimer.
I move to adopt the resolution approving for introduction rezoning number 21020 to rezone approximately 6 acres of land located on the north side of Jolly Road, east of Kansas Road, from industrial to and RAA one family medium density residential to PO, professional and office with conditions.
All right, is there a second?
Support.
Supported by the clerk. Trustee Opsmer, you get to go first.
So I would briefly just note that in our cover memo from Mr. Schmidt, we do have revised conditions. They are not hugely significant. They pretty much pertain to the previous ones. However, they have solidified some of those conditions, and they've been far more concrete as to where the screening will go in, where the landscaping will go in, and it really holds them in accord based on the discussion that we had at the last meeting about making sure that the western edge of the property along Kansas Road is fully screened. And specifically, the standard that they've held themselves to is screening in accordance or above the requirements outlined in our ordinance, which requires an interlocking double row of conifers. And then, of course, they have specifically outlined that that northernmost parcel will be preserved and used for screening and stormwater detention, and the other requirements used for the stormwater detention or underground infrastructure needed for that. I will just reiterate, for me, the ability to deliver the water mains down Kansas Road, especially with the exceedingly high inflation we have seen over the past 5 years, and especially over the past 2 years for underground infrastructure, is critical. We have heard from at least one resident on Kansas Street about their concern for their well and the water quality testing that they have received from the Ingham County Health Department. And we do know that there has been at least some source contamination there from the industrial use. The other big key factor, I think, for some, there was one resident who spoke earlier asking why we would even be considering this proposal at this juncture with the Planning Commission's previous recommendation to deny. And I think what has transpired since that time is basically a complete revamping of the site plan, closing off the current access point on Kansas Street and putting in that screening to basically insulate the neighborhood from whatever this property may be zoned or whatever commercial or business use may occur there, and making it a true residential frontage on that western edge, at least appearance wise. Whereas today we have little to no screening whatsoever for the residents, and they're often looking directly upon the stacks of vehicles and other mechanical equipment that might be housed there behind Midwest currently. And of course, those ingresses and egresses have now been moved from Kansas to Jolly Road and through the other commercial located to the east, adjacent to the site. So with that, those are the reasons that has brought me into support of the project, the core reasons, and I will turn it back over for other comments from board members.
Other board members? Yay or nay? You speak your mind. Now's the time. Trustee Wazinski.
I also want to express my support for the project with the conditions. Again, there's a few things that bring me to this decision. One of them is the access to healthcare on the south side of Meridian Township. And this type of healthcare, I think, is really important. We are lacking that. In reviewing the current land use map, the mix, it is pretty much a mix of residential and professional and office. And that industrial zoning is just really out of place and long-term become very troublesome, although already, posing some safety hazards, as well as I'm not sure where the water quality or water contamination came from, but I would assume it would be from an industrial use of some sort.
Just play the second half. Yeah.
Oh, so
She should.
Someone has got a microphone on.
Okay. Um,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Brzezinski.
I also want to say that I am impressed also with Sparrow's improvements on their conditions and I believe their true consideration for the neighbors. I know initially there wasn't a whole lot of transparency, but I do understand that there has been conversations, and I'm hoping and will encourage Sparrow to have ongoing, dialogue with the neighbors. I think, again, adding those significant vegetation buffers to the north and west side are really important. As Trustee Absamer said, there is no buffer right now. Reducing the access onto Kansas really does give that a natural feel that I know that the neighbors have expressed with the dirt road, and now you'll be, it would be all tree buffer. I think that's really important. And then, of course, adding water and sewers to those homes on Kansas Street is really important for their water quality. Of course, this is the first time I'm hearing about the contamination, but also just an amenity to those families altogether. One thing the one condition also that was really stands out is that they will pursue a LEED certified building. So they're going to try to keep that as work to make it as environmental friendly as possible, which would include things that like noise pollution and or light pollution. Those are things all considered when getting certified for LEED. So I appreciate all of the residents and their concerns. I'm bringing them to us. I do feel that the conditions given have addressed most of those concerns, and I do feel like this will be a really good project for our township.
Other board members, further discussion? Treasurer.
Thank you. Initially, I did not support this proposal. I took the vote of the Planning Commission seriously, as we all do. They are the ones that we look to for these zoning recommendations. But as Trustee Oppenheimer pointed out, there's been a complete revamping of this proposal. I am really impressed with the closing of the Kansas Road access to the new site. Also, the really significant concession to add water service to Kansas Road. I too was unaware that there were some water contamination issues prior to this. The resident that informed us that he's failed 2 county water tests is significant. We do need more healthcare on the south side of the township. And I think right now we only have 1 ambulance available south of Grand River. All the rest of our ambulances are on the north side. So I believe this is going to add to the healthcare, our ability to respond in a quick fashion to certain healthcare emergencies, medical emergencies here in the township. I like the screening that's being provided and the specifics of the screening, the density of the trees. The LEED certified building is also very impressive. That's the gold standard we've asked many developers to. Many have promised or said they'd try for it. I believe Sparrow is going to deliver in this case. So this is a new proposal, I believe, compared to what this Planning Commission saw. For those reasons and for the many benefits of this proposal, I'm prepared to support it. One of our callers did speak to not just the benefits to a specific area, but to the benefits of the greater community. And I believe this healthcare facility will benefit the greater Meridian community, particularly those on the south side of the township. For those reasons, I intend to support this rezoning. Thank you.
Other board members wishing to speak on this? Trustee Jackson?
I too am prepared to support the progress of this application, primarily as others have stated, based on the changes made from the plan, the distance that the applicant has gone to address the concerns and the needs of the residents in Kansas Road since the Planning Commission review of the application. And so I am at this time prepared to support the resolution for introduction.
There's a couple more trustees. Do you want to speak up? Okay. I will indicate that it's been a very, very tough call for me. You know, I do appreciate the more rural aspects of some of our township. We've tried to maintain that wherever we can. And Indiana and Kansas are kind of like these little pockets there that are well hidden away. You don't even realize that they're there unless you know about them, that they're these kind of country roads, not very long, not a lot of houses, but kind of like little country roads there. And I appreciate that. I think that is a value in itself. And that made it harder for me to decide this. But, you know, this is not the same proposal that the Planning Commission had. I also like to look to the Planning Commission, their wisdom. And this no longer is exactly what they had. In many ways, it's radically different because of the conditions that have been put forward, as this applicant has tried so hard to take away any concerns that the neighbors may have by positive changes. And those changes are many, as have been mentioned by other trustees, Trustee Opsimer and others, and they're very significant. So, you know, that tends to lead me towards the direction of supporting it. And then there's the water issue. And while there may not be a problem with all these wells, we heard one person said they did have some issues. You know, as an old regulator of public water supplies in the state, I know how important it is to eventually get over to public water. It's great where necessary to have your own well, but over time that does present problems. The aquifers can only support so many wells for so long, end up having to spend money to go deeper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or have to put in filtration like we heard from one citizen here today. And the fact that this applicant is willing to actually condition their approval on putting water down that street is, to me, a very, very big deal. Even if people choose not to hook up right now, in the long run, that's going to be a real plus. So there's a lot of things that this applicant has done to try to take away the concerns. You know, if we leave this as industrial, at least the southern portion, the part that people aren't really that objecting to, but still it's part of the whole package. You leave it as industrial, you don't know what you're going to get. Obviously, Midwest has got in mind that they're going to move somewhere, or this wouldn't even be in front of us. If that's the case, and it isn't this particular applicant, and it just stays zoned as industrial at the south end there on Jolly, I could have even a noisier, messier, more difficult neighbor than Midwest has been. And Midwest is an excellent citizen of our township. They provide wonderful services. I've used them for years and years and years and years at their various locations. And I think they're outstanding in many ways, but they are a lesser industrial use. It does have some issues that come forward, as the neighbors have actually told us about throughout this whole process. And I think those problems are in some ways going to be, in the long run, looked at as having been worse than what they imagined the problems might be if this becomes the Sparrow Medical Center that we've looked at here. So with all of that and all those thoughts, at this point, I am a yes vote for this rezoning with those conditions. And those conditions have been very well laid out. Trustee Opsimer.
Yes, just very briefly, Mr. Supervisor, I just wanted to note one other thought that I had that occurred to me because I did go back and review the Planning Commission materials. And if we recall, when this was before the Planning Commission, the applicant was actually Van Martin. So Sparrow was not the applicant, and the application for rezoning before the Planning Commission did not include any site plan or any configuration. So much of what residents had been concerned about was the hypothetical scenario of what is being proposed and what will it mean. And then obviously there's been a lot of discussions on the specific changes that we've discussed because that original concept plan did include 2 ingresses and egresses on Kansas Road. But I just wanted to state for the record that, you know, when the Planning Commission had this before them, the applicant, the true applicant, was not known to them. The use of the property beyond it being a professional and office rezoning request was not known to them. And then, of course, site plan constraints. It was very difficult for them to talk about site plan constraints as we have been able to do, given the fact that they did not even know what was proposed. So I think that's an important fact surrounding this application and what's come forward. But I would reiterate, eliminating the industrial rezoning, as you had stated, is of the foremost importance for me, and then the access to quality and reliable public water. Thank you.
Thank you. Good points. Manager Welsh, you want to comment here, sir?
I just want to let you know and the rest of the board that last meeting when you discussed this, there was a couple of questions for Fire Chief Hamill, who was not available that evening. He is on this call tonight in case there's any questions you have for him. Thank you.
Did anyone have any questions? I see. Trustee Osmer, you have a question?
I asked the question, so I suppose I'll just re-paraphrase it for Chief Hamill. My question 2.5 weeks ago or so, Chief, was to Manager Walsh, since you were not able to attend with us that evening. And I was mostly just looking for your thoughts and input on both the public safety component of having an ER centrally located on the southern end of the township for our ambulance access, and also for the public water and the public water mains, and what that would mean for fire suppression to the north on Kansas Street, or possibly even on Robbins Way. I'm not sure if that would factor.
Chief? I see you on there, but I don't see your picture, and you are muted. Manager Welsh, are we?
Yeah, I just sent him a text to make sure to see that he was available. I know he's trying to attend his daughter's sporting event this evening in a championship game or match. So he should be available here momentarily. But if not,
listening to us with one ear while he's paying attention on the other side to his daughter. I totally understand.
Yeah.
Well, we'll hopefully get that answered in a minute or two.
Okay.
In the meantime, does anyone have any question? I know the applicant is here with several people. Are there any outstanding issues that you want to ask the applicant about while we're discussing this? Any final questions for the applicant? I will ask the applicant, is there any additional matters that they need us to know about before we take our vote on this?
The chief is also on, sir.
Okay. All right, then we'll go back to the chief first. Chief, we have a question, two questions for you from Mr. Opsimer. I'll have him repeat that to you.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No worries, Chief, and good luck at the game tonight.
Thank you.
I just had two simple questions. I was curious what your thoughts are on the public safety components of both the access for our ambulances to reach this ER versus other regional ER systems, and also the fire suppression component with extending the water mains down Kansas Road for fire suppression in the future if we should have a fire.
Well, I'll tackle your second question first. So, having hydrants on the street, that's always a bonus. When we don't have hydrants, we call for what we call a tanker task force, which is fire departments all over the county come with big tankers, 2,500, 3,000 gallons, and we do what we call a tanker shuttle. So hydrants do make it a lot easier for us during a fire situation. So that's a really easy one to look at. That's definitely a bonus. In regards to the freestanding ER and safety, I don't see really any safety issues. I don't know if they're going to have security there. I did listen to one of the callers earlier that talked about mental health issues and spilling out into the street and such, which is always a concern at any facility. So in regards to us being able to respond there, that's a protocol that's going to have to be set by the state and by our medical control. For us to respond there, and it's I can't say it's not going to be a benefit for us. We will take patients there, just we don't know how many.
Yeah, I meant more on the response times and getting folks to critical care as quickly as possible, especially with only having one fire station with ambulance service south of Grand River.
Okay. So I don't know what patients we're going to be able to take there. So to answer that, let's just say we have a full arrest, and I know other freestanding emergency departments across the state and country. If you have a cardiac arrest, you can take them to some of them, some you can't. And if you get a spontaneous return of a pulse while you're managing a full arrest, there's most places you can't take them to. So it really depends on what they allow us to take there. Now, being able to take any patient there, it's going to keep our ambulance in Meridian Township. Instead of driving, up to McLaren or to Sparrow, it's going to keep our ambulance in our area, which is safer for our community. But in regards to patient care, I don't know what we're going to be allowed to take there and what we're not. So if that makes sense.
Understood. Appreciate that. And thank you, Chief Hamill.
I would ask, I see the applicants are on here. There has been an issue raised with regard to security. Mr. Brez, do you have any comments on that?
Yes, thank you. Tom Brez with Sparrow. I'll make a couple of comments and then invite Dr. Kent, who's on tonight as well. That's actually one of the benefits of having a freestanding emergency department, is that a lot of the patients that would and are taken care of at our hospital facilities, or that normally are at hospital facilities, it won't be at a freestanding emergency department, and so it allows people to get emergency care without some of the complexities of a level 1 trauma center. I'll let Dr. Kent add to
that. Hi, I'm Karen Kent Van Gorder. I do live in Meridian Township at 6215 Bridgewater. Thanks for the opportunity to answer those questions. The freestanding emergency department would be able to take patients that had needs for chest pain stabilization and myocardial infarction, MI, heart attack, potential strokes, and would be able to receive actual treatment there for that stabilization, and as well as blood clot busting drugs that treat those conditions, and then when stable, transferred to an inpatient bed at Sparrow. We do have an obligation to evaluate and treat everyone that comes to us, like any other emergency department. That is called MTELA. And then some of the people in Meridian Township have psychiatry needs, of course. So if someone's 17-year-old is suicidal, if someone's older relative got too much Benadryl over the counter accidentally and is looking like they have psychosis from that, this facility would be available to them, but they would be medically stabilized and then transferred to one of our psychiatric hospitals if needed, or to the medical hospital if needed, or stabilized and released home with loved ones to take care of them. We do not turn people out to wander who are incompetent and can't care for themselves, not at our downtown facility and not in any other facility either. So that is not an issue in terms of safety.
Thank you. Any other board member discussion? Clerk.
I want to thank the community members for their comments and their along the way, especially because without them, I don't think Sparrow would be able to address the number of items that they have changed, that they have in regards to the trees, the access, the safety, the lighting issues, just a number of issues. And so I appreciate the comments from the community members. I appreciate the changes from Sparrow. And I just wanted to comment that, Kansas Road over time, and the residents who live on Kansas Road over time, and many of you probably know, I mean, it's right off Jolly Road, and there's been a lot of changes in that area, and change is hard. So I understand the concerns that the neighbors have. But I think that this change in zoning I concur with my colleagues on that, and many of the comments. This change in zoning is a good one for this area, and I think that it is it meets the area of Jolly Road and all changes that we've seen along it, with Netzlaw Farm becoming a neighborhood, with MSU Credit Union, with elevation apartments. There's just been a number of changes along Jolly Road, and I think that this fits in that area.
Any other board member discussion? If not, I guess it's time for us to vote.
Trustee Jackson.
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Supervisor Stika.
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer.
Why don't you go back to him?
Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I said it a little slower just in case. All right. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to for your comments, and thank you for the applicant for their presence. And this is the introduction. We will have this again in front of us for adoption. Thank you. We now move on to item C, the Okemos drain, which we have discussed. And we can start with the motion, and I'll call Mr. Perry. Ms. Jackson.
I move to approve the resolution requesting the relinquishment of the Okemos drain to the township, approve the operation and maintenance of the township drain agreement, approve the resolution to file a drain petition pursuant to Chapter 8 and 19 of the Michigan Drain Code of 1956 as amended, and approve and submit the petition for the consolidation of drainage districts and for cleaning out, relocating, widening, deepening, straightening, tiling, extending, providing structures, adding lands not within the existing drainage districts, adding branches and relief drains, relocating along a highway, adding structures and mechanical devices that will properly purify or improve the flow, adding pumping equipment necessary to assist or relieve the flow, and for the consolidation of drains pursuant to Chapters 8 and 19 of the Michigan Drain Code of 1956 as amended and presented.
Excellent job of reading that. Also, excellent job of writing that. Is there a second? Is there treasurer? Okay. All right. Mr. Perry, do you want to explain this to us before we go further with our discussion?
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor Stika, members of the board. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm on a different camera. I was having a little struggle with the last one. So hopefully you can hear me. But
we hear you. You're a little, you don't sound like yourself, but we hear you.
Okay. All right. As discussed at the last meeting, the Grettenberger and Meyer drain, those are two drains that are being studied in preparation for the Grand River Avenue reconstruction next year. And as the study was being conducted, it was very apparent that we needed to really analyze the Okemos drain as well. As part of that, all these drains have their own bodies, own rules, own regulations, and it just made sense that as we move forward, really needed to consolidate these three drains into one new Okemos consolidated drain. In order to do that, that was the purpose for that very long resolution to address all that. And what that does is allows us then to file petitions with the County Drain Commissioner to move the process forward. Again, I'll answer any questions the board may have, but I know we had the presentation last meeting and have discussed the drains in this area several occasions.
Trustee Opsimer.
So Deputy Manager Perry, the one question I had since the presentation and reflecting on the presentation that we had several weeks ago is how will the consolidation impact the special assessment district for the drains? I assume essentially any work on the drain at large, once consolidated, would be spread across the new special assessment district reflecting this new drain in its entirety, correct?
Correct. So the new district, the assessments, everyone that's within the new drainage district then shares in those assessments.
Okay.
We're currently, actually, the Okemos drain is a chapter 20. So that is the local units of government are the ones who bear the burden of those costs. Where now, once it's consolidated, it would be under a different chapter, and those assessments would be passed along to the benefit of the property owner.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that, as it occurs to me, is, let's see here, neighborhood is it? But we do have residential neighborhoods there, you know, off of Marsh Road, between Hamilton and between Marsh and Grand River, and some residential on the northeast side with the Okemos drain. And so by consolidating those, for any work that occurs in the future on those drains, you know, the Meridian Mall would help subsidize. But for any work on like one of the business district drains, the cost would be very small for the residents. So it's helping to spread that cost out, or any associated drain work out, and produce smaller special assessments for the residents over time.
Correct. So the commercial district will help basically share in that burden. And again, all assessments are based on benefit derived. So again, if an improvement is done that benefits just, let's say 3 of the 5 parcels, the majority of those benefiting parcels would receive the majority of that assessment.
And final question is, have we identified where we would, as we look to do this associated work on Grand River Avenue, which will require a lot of fill, bringing that road grade up, have we identified to a greater detail where we would look to make those cuts in wetlands to provide that offsetting cut?
We have, that would be occurring actually on the central fire station property, the township property that's owned. It would be just in the southeast of the central fire station property there. It's
Okay.
gonna work out well. It was located in a good location.
Excellent. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize. I feel like I'm shouting at everyone.
You feel like you're what?
Shouting at everyone.
Well, you sound like you're a little bit underwater, but it's all right. We got you. We anyone else? Treasurer.
Thank you, Deputy Manager Perry, for bringing this to the board's attention and moving this forward. We didn't have flooding in 2021. We didn't have flooding in 2020. Not sure about 19, but 18 or so, we had that massive flood there in this affected area. And at the time, we all threw our hands up and said, not much we can do because of the infrastructure problems here, with the drains simply being overwhelmed by that fast melt and heavy rain. So this is a long-term solution. It's not a crisis we're responding to because of a recent flood, but good planning on our part. So I'm glad we brought this forward. I think this consolidation makes a lot of sense. It may save some of our residents some money on their current drain assessments, but even if it's a net wash, it's good public policy to be doing this, and I'm glad to support this, and I appreciate the staff foresight to bring this to the board at a quieter time to get it done when things are dry, so that next time it gets really wet, we're ready for it. So thank you.
Okay, further discussion. I'll mention that our county drain commissioner often reminds us that drains were originally created in a much different situation than we have today. You know, we're much more rural, not only here, but throughout the whole state. There were really a lot of what developed later on was never thought about. And it's always best to try to modernize and bring the drains up to the realities of today and the potentialities of the future. And I thank Mr. Perry, because that is exactly what I believe we're trying to do here. So appreciate that. Yeah, right. It looks like we're going to vote on this then. Go ahead, clerk.
Supervisor Stike, I believe Trustee Jackson has her hand raised.
Oh, she's over there in my corner. There we are. Sorry about that, Patricia.
I just wanted to add that I note that this motion represents a consolidation of about 5 or 6 different resolutions that a consolidation of the process and the many different processes that have to be invoked to consolidate these 3 drains. And for that reason, there's all of that description. Several resolutions are in our packet, are represented in our packet, and there are different steps in the process that are contained in that one motion.
Very well said. This is the last we're seeing of this, is it? All right. I guess now we're ready for vote. Am I right? Okay. Go ahead, clerk.
Okay, trustee Absamer,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
trustee Jackson,
Yes.
Supervisor Stika,
Yes.
clerk Guthrie votes yes, treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
carries 7-0.
More work for Mr. Perry and the staff and others.
Thank you.
All right. We now go on to item 12D, National Gun Violence Awareness Day resolution. We adopted a similar resolution a year ago. There is a national movement to make the first Friday in June National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And we kind of signed on to this last year, and it's proposed that we do it again. And we have in front of you the virtually identical, little changes here or there, resolution that we did last year. Can I have a motion? Treasurer. You're fine. Go ahead. Oh, you're looking for it. It's the motion to approve the National Gun Violence Awareness Day resolution. Do you make that?
I'm getting there.
You gotta swim through all those drains before you get to it.
I move to approve the National Gun Violence Awareness Day resolution.
Is there support?
Support.
Supported by the clerk. I don't know if it needs any discussion, but Mr. DeShane, are you interested in saying anything?
Sure. We all know that gun violence is a national tragedy in this country. We have been fortunate in our community. We haven't had a mass shooting. We haven't had the kind of gun violence in mass that other communities have, but it's happening everywhere in this country right now. Gun violence is a serious problem, and we need to address it. We need to look at it in our community and every community and do what we can to reduce the likelihood of gun violence in our community. So for those reasons, I fully support the first Friday in June as National Gun Violence Awareness Day.
Okay. There's some interesting statistics in the resolution. Every day, more than 100 Americans are killed by gun violence. On an average, there are more than 13,000 gun homicides every year in this nation. That Americans are 25 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries throughout the world. And that's rather terrible as well as amazing. All right, then we need a vote.
Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
clerk Guthrie votes yes, supervisor Stika,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Absamer.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Our next item is another action item, acceptance of the 2020 audit findings that we heard earlier today we had in front of us, including in our packets. Do we need further comments or let's do the motion first. So I'd like to do a motion. Trustee Jackson.
I move to approve the 2020 audited financial statements and the single audit as presented by Yao and Yao.
Okay.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wazinski. Anything you want to say, Ms. Jackson, or ask about?
And no, I don't have any questions or additional comments. I thought the presentation was very thorough and understandable.
And a good audit.
It was
Treasurer,
a very good audit, yes.
Was a good audit, and I think it's salient that the single audit that was done on our federal spending, which is something that we don't typically deal with, this kind of the CARES money dropped in our laps. It has to be spent exactly as the government specifies, that we passed that audit. There were no material findings there. We spent it exactly as we were instructed to, and it speaks well to Miriam and our entire accounting staff for the excellent work they do day in and day out here in Meridian Township.
the day of Miriam's report card. Others? Okay, then the wonderful work done by Yo and Yo, and more particularly, the wonderful work done by our staff and Ms. Madison, et cetera, and Mr. Walsh is in front of us. We need a vote.
Trustee Opsmer,
Yes.
trustee Jackson,
Yes.
treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
trustee Sunland,
Yes.
trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
supervisor Stika,
Yes.
clerk Guthrie votes yes. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Next item is our legal counsel contract and continuing legal services. We discussed last time in general, do we want to go through the RFP process, and go through the process of reviewing different potential attorney firms, et cetera, and decided generally that what we would do instead would be at on this occasion, extend our legal contract for another 3 years. This is something we can do under the contract. And we can do this legally without having to go through the RFP process. Both Mr. Perry and I were charged with communicating with our attorneys, Mr. Fahey from Fahey, Schultz, Persich, and Rhodes. And we came up with, they came up with very few changes, very minor increases in the amount of cost to the township. Very appropriate in light of the amount of time has gone by and it changes in the real world. There'd be an increase of $250 each year of the agreement overall, and then an hourly rate increase of $5 per year. For reference, the current monthly flat fee is $5,500 and the hourly rate is $225. And as I look at this as an attorney, retired, and a government attorney, but they seem to be extremely reasonable. And if anything, we're getting excellent value for the price. Mr. Opsmer.
Yes, I will move to approve the renewal engagement as township attorneys with Fahey, Schultz, Persich, and Rhodes for the term of 3 years as presented, and authorize the township supervisor to sign the agreement on behalf of the township.
Support.
Supported by the treasurer. Any further discussion, Mr. Opsmer?
Yeah, I would just note, as we discussed at our last meeting, that we do have roughly half a dozen legal matters of meaningful consequence to the township, one of which obviously may be taken to the Supreme Court and has implications for communities across Michigan beyond just ourselves. And then also probably the most prevalent issue that we face that has financial consequence to the township is the dark store cases of property tax appeals that we receive from predominantly big box retailers in the township. And our attorneys gave us excellent counsel, and we had one of the most significant successes in fighting cases of that nature when we fought the Kroger appeal. I think it was three and a half years ago now, and had very minuscule decline under the agreement that we reached with them based on the comps that our assessing department and our attorneys brought to their attention. So we've received excellent counsel here, and based on the cases and the litigation that we have before us, I believe it would be in our best interest to continue the agreement under the terms provided. And those terms are similar to the previous 3-year increases that we had with this firm. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we have further comments, I want to mention something. You notice that Manager Walsh is no longer on this Zoom call. That's because he has chosen to err on the side of safety and ethics, et cetera, and not be a part of this discussion of the attorney contract, because his son-in-law, Kyle O'Meara, is actually employed at the firm as one of his attorneys, although he has never worked on any of our projects, any of our legal matters. And in fact, part of the attorney agreement with the Fahey firm for the extension was specifically state that he would not be employed in any way on any of our matters. I will mention, though, as someone who worked on ethics issues for the state and conflicts of interest, it really isn't a conflict of interest. It's a son-in-law, and it's not anything where Mr. Walsh would be gaining, et cetera. But he wants to make sure everything looks as good as it can, and he wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that he's not really part of this negotiation. That's why Mr. Perry and I have pursued it. Mr. Deshane, you had a comment.
Yes, I've observed this law firm both as a board member and now as a staff person, department head, and they really do work as a partner with township department heads. They serve as consultants. They provide us with straight, direct opinions, and I think their good advice saves us a lot of money. Of course, it's not free, but it has been solid advice. And as Trustee Opsman pointed out, in just the Kroger case alone, we've paid a significant amount of the fees. We've earned back a significant amount of the fees we pay them due to our win with the settlement with Kroger's. They're also an excellent community partner, and they provide education for other townships at MTA and Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association meetings as well. So they really are committed to the greater good of all communities, and really are a good member of our community. We do have a precedent for this extension of these contracts. We did a similar thing 2 or 3 years ago with our prosecutor, the Cullen Harkness firm, and that has turned out very well for us. Our police department is partnering with the Harkness law firm for our criminal cases, and it's a hand in glove arrangement. They work very, very well together, and I'm confident that we'll continue to work just as well with the Fahey Schultz firm as well.
I think the township has always had pretty good legal representation in all fields, but right now I would say we have outstanding service with regard to all aspects of our legal services, whether they're criminal, civil, or whatever. Anyone else? Then we need a vote. Clerk, you're busy again.
Treasurer Deshane?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Supervisor Stika?
Excuse me, I got muted there. Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you. And Mr. Walsh, if he could be told to come back, he can come back. All right. So now going on to a matter that was brought to my attention very well by our clerk. And this is a resolution dealing with the celebration of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, etc. Pride Month, which is the month of June. And we need a motion, and I'm going to call on the clerk.
All right, I move to approve the resolution celebrating lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ Pride Month.
Supported by Trustee Wazinski. Discussion, Ms. Guthrie.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Stika. This came to my attention through, I mean, not only that it's an annual event and it's something that my husband and I have actually taken part in several pride parades across the country, but also through a press release from the governor's office this morning, and something that I know that this board has supported in years past. And so I want to commend this board and previous boards for efforts that they've taken in human rights and equal rights and treating people equally. No one should be treated differently based on their gender or how they identify their gender as. No one should be treated differently based off their skin color or their hair color or their religion or their socioeconomic status. And I believe this board in years past, and I tried to include that in the resolution, has taken a number of steps to treat people equally in this community and be a welcoming community. And so I commend you for those efforts, and I hope as the latest board member to be added to the Meridian Township Board that I continue to represent Meridian Township in that way. And I know that we will do that collectively as a board. And so therefore, I wanted to bring that resolution today before the board.
Thank you. Ms. Wazinski.
I want to thank Clerk Guthrie. I didn't realize it was June already. And so I'm really happy that you brought this to us today. I truly want to express my support and my love for my moms, my cousins, my nephew, my family, my friends, my neighbors, my coworkers, teammates, and all people identifying as LGBTQ+. We must continue to fight to make sure that our LGBTQ neighbors feel safe and valued. I've witnessed multiple occasions where safety is a concern, discrimination is a concern, and even violence, and that's solely based on who you love. We should all fight to love anyone, to love our neighbors, and to be ourselves and be proud. So thank you, Clerk.
I like the fact that your resolution reminds everyone that this board, well, it's a predecessor board, but still this board, in 2013 did some very important things. In May, we joined together with East Lansing and Delta and Delhi Townships to launch a coalition press conference to push for LGBT non-discrimination ordinances. Then at a meeting in July of 2013, we actually voted unanimously to amend our policies to prohibit any discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. And in October of 2013, we adopted an ordinance that prohibited discrimination in housing, public accommodations, et cetera, for those reasons. So I think that even though the state has still failed to act in this area, we've done what we can, and we will continue to take those positive attitudes in all that we do. Treasurer.
Yes, I'll support this, intend to support this resolution. It's important that our LGBTQ community feels safe, valued, and cherished here in Meridian Township. And it's sad that the state legislature has not been able to expand the Elliott Larson to include these protections to the LGBTQ community, but we can certainly make a statement by passing this resolution in support of the LGBT community.
Any other final comments? We need a vote.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Trustee Absemer?
Yes.
Trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Supervisor Stika?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ms. Guthrie, for reminding us and bringing this forward on the first day of the month. Very important. Thank you. All right, we are done with our action items and moving on to our one discussion item. which is rezoning number 21040, Okemos IL-AL Investors LLC, rezone approximately 9.07 acres located at 1510 and 1560 Grand River Avenue from C2 commercial to RA single family medium density. Okay, who's ready to start this discussion? Should we have an explanation of it first? Mr. Pitt?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor and board members. Request in front of you this evening is rezoning 2 parcels on the north side of Grand River Avenue to residential, RA one family medium density in this case. They're currently zoned C2 commercial. This is a site of a previous development proposal that has not proceeded. And the owner of the property is pursuing options to sell the property to the development group that has brought forward this rezoning. The request is subject to a single condition that the proposed buyer of the property, Okemos IL-AL Investors LLC, become the fee simple owner of the property pursuant to the purchase sale agreement dated February 2021 on or before September 19th, 2022. Unless such condition is expressly waived by Okemos IL-AL Investors LLC. Essentially, they acquire the property and it maintains it, or they don't acquire it and it is reverted, as that would be what the current owner would like to keep it as. They have indicated that they will be moving forward with a proposal for a senior housing type facility. And I know that I believe at least one of the applicant's representatives is on the line this evening. Should you have any specific questions about that, but those are items that we will address through the further development review process here. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this matter in April, received no public comment, and then at their first meeting in May, did recommend approval of the requested rezoning. Although it is not directly in compliance with the future land use map, they did indicate that the proposed use is favorable and there is similar zoning in the area, so it would not be too out of the ordinary for this type of proposal, especially given that it is a more non-residential proposal being made for the residential zoning. So the board does have several options in front of them this evening. They can approve or deny the proposed rezoning. You may also amend it, and if you choose to amend it, can send it back to the Planning Commission for further review. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that is a brief overview of where we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Your first time on the hot seat.
Thank you very much.
And you said there's an applicant representative here if we have any questions.
I believe there are 2 in the participant list if we have any questions.
Okay. All right, discussion. Who wants to go first? Treasurer.
I would like to hear from the applicant, give us a preview of what they have in store here. We do need additional senior housing. We do need additional memory care facilities. So I like the broad concept of it. And for Mr. Schmidt and the applicant, this wasn't just a failed C2 project. It was a disastrous C2 development. La Fontaine came in and cut down 300 beautiful trees on that property and then said, oh no, we don't want to do a dealership after all, sorry. And then moved to sell the
Mr. Deshane, you're
muted, Mr. Deshane. I don't know how you got muted, but you're muted.
5-6 seconds ago.
Okay. All right. So anyway, this board has a bitter taste in its mouth, at least this board member does, about what's tried to be developed here before. So I'd love to get a preview from the applicant as to what they envision for this site.
Applicant?
So I believe Aubrey Holmes, who just put her hand up, is the main representative of the applicant, if we can pull her in.
We're in right now.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you all. I'm Aubrey Holmes. I'm the Senior Development Manager with Smith Packet, and we're affiliated with the Okemos IL-AL Investors LLC. Smith Packet, just to give you a little bit of a background, has been around for about 40 years, developed or acquired over 150 senior housing buildings, and our sister company is Harmony Senior Services. and they've been around for about 11, 12 years at this point. And their bread and butter is an independent living, assisted living, memory care, all under one roof. And the goal is to be able to age in place. We have a lot of amenities that we put in every building, a pub, which they love to go to about 4 o'clock every day, bistro, walking trail, exercise, physical therapy, 3 separate dining rooms, 1 for independent living, 1 for assisted living, 1 for memory care, 3 separate courtyards with a barbecue area, beauty parlor, theater, and then also van transportation so that we can take the residents out into the community. They can attend church services in the community. They can go to the local grocery store. But it's also encouraging them to give up their independence with their car, being more reliant on the van transportation. We like to customize the buildings to blend in with the community and the site. So we keep all those cookie cutter components in every building, but then we'll look at the site, select the layout that most benefits the site, landscaping. We also will look at the aspects of the community and try to pull those elements into the exterior elevations. So that's a little bit of give you a little more comfort that we are real. We get all of our zoning approval, site plan approval, and building plan approval before we even close on the property. And then our goal is to begin construction as soon as we close on the property. The longer we wait, the more time we're losing, the more money we're losing. And our biggest, a competitor coming into the market is driving us to move quickly. It's driving us to get a shovel in the ground and build the building as soon as possible. If that helps.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Duchesne?
Does help. Ms. Holmes, can you tell us what the breakout might be of independent living units, memory care units or beds, and assisted living units or beds, however you classify them?
Sure, of course. It'll be roughly 90 to 100 independent living units, roughly 50 to 70 assisted living units, and 35 to 40 memory care units. And our goal is for folks to age in place, but it's also for couples. If one person has memory care, unfortunately, concerns, they can go to memory care, and their spouse can be in independent living or assisted living. But they can still share meals together. They can still share activities together, and they're all under one roof.
Thank you.
Other board members, discussion? Ms. Jackson? You're muted.
Yes, I have before lamented the loss of residential zoning opportunities in the township, and I am impressed by this particular request where we're looking to rezone parcels from, I believe they're commercial, C2 commercial, to residential. One of the things that I would be interested in pointing out is that simple rezoning also presents opportunities for other kinds of residential uses in this location. If for some reason this particular proposal is not the one that ends up on the property. And so I am positively disposed for that reason, that it is an opportunity to add residential space and opportunities in an area that is growing and developing well in the township at this time.
With regard to that, Mr. Schmidt, is there a condition here that such that we would not get to where Ms. Jackson is proposing, or is this, if we make this zoning change, it's done?
So if we make this zoning change, there is a limited scenario under which it could potentially be rezoned. But certainly that's something that the board would be able to take up in September of 2022, should this development actually not proceed. So certainly if this development does fall apart, I think there's an opportunity for the board to maintain what we have here.
But this particular request is actually kind of conditional, I guess, in a way.
It's a very limited condition in that their intention with the condition is to show that they are committed to doing this project.
Got it.
That condition is literally essentially their development timeframe of what they're looking at. So they thought that would be beneficial to provide that sort of confidence that they are going forward and this is how they're going forward. But certainly if for some reason they do not continue, we can take a look at whether or not it needs to be automatically rezoned or not.
Yes, Mr. Osmer.
Yes, Mr. Schmidt, can you remind me what's the minimum and maximum density for RA zoning?
Unfortunately, unlike Mr. Kieselbach, I do not have that immediately at hand at the moment. If you give me just a second.
And I'll just expound here for a minute for my colleagues while you look that up. I'm just confused how a memory care, a 3-tiered independent assisted and memory care unit would go on an RAA zone property under one roof. That sounds like multifamily housing, which is a different zoning category entirely.
So in this district, it is specific that you can do senior care type facilities subject to special land use approval, but not a specifically multifamily building without those limitations.
This is the carve out that we created, and we were told it would only apply to and of in one location. And now it's applying to, but didn't you have to have 10 acres? How many acres is it?
They do have to have 10 acres, and they are looking into their options for meeting that requirement at this time.
Yeah, they only have 9 point something I saw in the packet, 9.07. I mean, that was put in there to not make it a one-off. At first, I was really excited about the rezoning because I was thinking you could, do it like a PUD and pack it in tight with 60% open space wrapping around it, and you could restore the property to what it once was, which was tree-lined on the frontages of all the 2 roadways. Putting a large facility on it like that, you're never going to be able to restore it to what it was. It's just going to become what's across the street. So I was confused at first, but now I realize that they're trying to fit in under that zoning ordinance that we made as a one-off for and of. I don't know. I'm not exuberant about it, knowing that. And I would like to see progress made in terms of restoring the corner to at least have the appearance of what it was 2.5 years ago, at the very least. And the rezoning isn't consistent with the master plan, but I was excited because it was moving in the right direction. But really, for all intents and purposes, this is basically, we didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that zoning amendment because it was a one-off, and we were told the 10-acre threshold would make it a one-off, and now here it is being used just a short while later. And so that, you'd have to go up to our highest zoning density of 14 units per acre. Is the applicant looking at going above our maximum thresholds for density? Because we did have caveats in there. We let ANDAV go up to 25, even though I believe our highest zoning category caps out at 18 units per acre. I see this being a slippery slope unless we know what we're actually getting.
There is a limitation on the number of the density specific to the senior housing units. And so they'll have to provide that information to us when we get there. And there's a hard cap in that number. in terms of circling back to your underlying question of the residential density, RA roughly, it's 10,000 square foot per lot, so about 4.5 units to the acre, a little less. It drops down to about 3.25 once you go up to the R AAA or AA, and goes down from there. So the RA is the sort of second highest single family density the township has.
Yeah, but I believe under our MUPUD and under the highest multifamily zoning that we have, we cap out at 18 units per acre. The only exception we've made to that is downtown Okemos and downtown Hazlet. And then with this one off for Andev, we allowed them to go up to, I believe they were over 25. So I believe we uncapped it under the zoning ordinance if you get the special use permit. But Andev, just for the board's context, I mean, in approving 25 units per acre there, we had already gone up 39% over what our highest multifamily housing would have previously allowed for. That I don't think was the intent for this corner, just as a dealership wasn't. So I was getting really exuberant there for a minute, and now I'm understanding. So I would like to see more information from the applicant if we're going to take this site that has already had controversy and rezone it inconsistent with the master plan. I'd rather have the rezoning stay with the property. So the condition, I view the condition negatively because the condition is basically saying it's going to revert back to C2, and someone could propose putting an auto dealership on it again. So I view the condition negatively in context of Supervisor Steica flagging that. And with that, I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
Yes, you saw that correctly. Others? This is discussion time. Ms. Wazinski.
I also initially liked the moving towards a residential zoning. As you know, however, from what I heard, I think Ms. Holmes say, that would put us upwards of 240 units on this property. And if I'm understanding, I am not the best at this, so Director Schmidt, you might have to help her. To Trustee Opsimer's MUPUD cap is at 18 per acre. That would put 168 units. So it does seem the proposal seems very dense based on what I've heard. Certainly not opposed to it, but I would like some more information as well. And I would like to see some additional vegetation on the site. And I know that's long-term and down the road, but that's just something I would like to see. And then of course there's 2 wetlands located on this site. And so I would want some more information regarding the, preserving or protecting those wetlands during development, if in fact we went that route. If we did decide or did vote to move to an RA, I would also like to see that condition stay with the property. I just don't, I wasn't on the board when this previous development, almost occurred. So it was really disheartening as a resident to see that entire site clear cut and nothing go on it. So that it does kind of, stick out like that. So I guess Supervisor, I'm not in a position to support or not support, but I would like to see some additional info.
Seems to be the theme of what I'm hearing. Mr. DeShane.
I would agree that that the condition doesn't appeal to me. If we're going to change it back to residential, let's keep it as a residential. It makes sense to be residential. We've got residential all around there. The density doesn't worry me as much. It could be at 22, 20 per acre. The numbers that I heard her share were maximum of 100 independent units, 70 memory care, and 40 assisted living. So that comes to 210, but it's still going to be somewhere in the low 20s for a 9 acre. plot. Let's remember, these are by definition high intensity services that are providing for a not entirely mobile community. Looking back to the AMDAV development there off of Hagedorn, there were a couple of features of that besides it not being student housing. One of them being that there was a need for it. We didn't have a life care community per se, where someone can move in as in independent living, move up to assisted living, and then on to memory care as they aged. And we all like that idea of a life care community that a resident can move into at, say, 80 and stay there well into their 90s, and not have to move to 3 discrete locations. So the density for this type of facility on a busy commercial street, Grand River, doesn't concern me as much. But I too want to see more, and I want to see the site plan for it, et cetera, before we got too far into it. But it does sound like the applicant wants everything approved before they even purchase the property. So maybe we can find out more, Mr. Schmidt, at a future meeting as to how much we can see the facility before we take any additional steps towards approval. We're going to want to see more than a broad discussion before we take action to change the zoning on this parcel. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, one thing about this township is that some applicants, especially if they're not familiar with our area, is we like full information before we make decisions. And we don't like to change the zoning unless we know where it's going. Yes, Ms. Jackson, you had your hand up.
I was actually planning to ask the question, do we not have the option of changing the zoning without the condition that is being offered, so that the zoning change goes with the land as opposed to with the agreement?
I believe that you would be able to amend the application to make that change. If the board does not believe that the condition is proper for the proposed rezoning, we could have that conversation, yes.
Okay. Others?
Thank you.
So far, what I'm hearing is we need more information. Ms. Guthrie, is that do you want to actually say something about that?
No, I agree. I need a lot more information. I thought maybe I would just send a list of stuff that I was looking for to Director Schmidt.
Ms. Wazowski?
Supervisor, I see Ms. Holmes's hand is up. I don't see if she has any comments. I'd welcome.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And I don't catch those little blue things sometimes. Yes, Ms. Holmes.
Thank you very much. Wynn Bishop, our Senior Vice President of Development and Construction, is also on the line. He wanted to say a few words, I think, in regards to some of the processes that we've been outlined, including the special use permit. I think that a lot of the items on the special use permit address many of your questions and concerns. So I don't know if there's a way to bring him into the conversation. He's on Michelle's son's computer.
He's on his way in right now.
If there's a way, Mr. Geeves will find it.
Thank you.
There we are. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Wynn Bishop, Senior Vice President of Development and Construction for Smith Packet. Michelle Sons is here with me. She's the Development Manager. We appreciate all your questions. We certainly want to be completely transparent on our process. What we were told by the staff previously was that the square footage and the density was something that we would talk about during the special use permit process after rezoning, but we're happy to share information now on that. But it was really a kind of a two-step process. I understand the concern about the reversion Should we not go forward? That's something we can talk about. I will say our closure rate on these projects are, I don't think it's 100%, but it's pretty close to it. So when we have a team of analysts that pick a market, we find a good site in the market. We've got a good financial team. We've got our own separate company, Wessex Capital, that does all of our financing for our company. It's still owned by the same family. So financing's not a problem. We do want to have everything approved before we close on the project. But in all likelihood, this will be closed as a senior care facility. And we would move forward with that. One question I would say, most of our facilities are closer to the 190 units. Aubrey was kind of giving you kind of the bracket on each different types, but we're typically closer to 190. And again, keeping in mind the memory care units are like 400 square feet. They're not like apartments at all. There's continuum of care. Our senior residents, of course, memory care do not drive. Most of the assisted living do not drive. The assisted living, some of them do, I'd say over half drive. So, it's not it's not overly active. We do have shuttle buses that we take our residents out into the community, but we try to have everything under one roof so that they can live and progress as they need levels of care from IL into AL, and hopefully not memory care, but that happens. And as Aubrey said, we often have one spouse in memory care and one in independent living. But our buildings are about 1/3 common area. We have a commercial kitchen. We have a large independent living dining room, assisted living dining room, memory care dining room, a beauty shop, barber shop, fitness center, physical therapy center, visiting physician's office, game rooms, billiard rooms, bistro, pub, hospitality room. I'm sure I'm missing some, but a whole lot of common type space so the residents can stay there, and we have a very active programming list for them. So our use, I think, is very good for this area and any area really, but we're bullish on our use. We think it's a good fit there, but we certainly are happy to send any information and have further discussions with the board about the project.
Board members, any questions for the applicant representatives that are on this right now? Yes, Mr. Opser.
Yes, I was wondering if you folks had spoken to the Ide company, because we did have a 3-tier memory care facility, propose a facility at the street stub of Hannah Boulevard here in Meridian Township. Unfortunately, that project did fall through, and the two parties parted ways. I'm just curious if you had looked at that one, because it is over 10 acres and compliant.
Our analysts have looked at all of the competitors. I don't think we looked at that specific site. Our analysts zoom into one. They've got a very specific target market, and I don't know how far away that site is, but they look at the traffic, the adult children, the housing values, the competitors, and they really limit us to a fairly specific target area, which this one fit the bill, and it was a pretty small area. So I doubt that one would have fit in our target market.
It was located off of Hagedorn Road and Hannah Boulevard. If you want to look at it, it's adjacent in walking distance to the MSU campus. It's in a much denser part of the township as well. You're at the rural residential border of the township right here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I wish this site was over 10 acres, but it's not. We bought certainly larger sites, but we're kind of constrained by the roads. We are keeping the wetlands on the back of our property intact. We're not messing with those at all, and we are planting additional trees on the back of the property, as an additional buffer. And our seniors like green space, and we have walking trails. We have memory care garden, assisted living garden, independent living garden. And, we encourage them to get out and walk on the facility and in the community. So we certainly want to make it as green as we can.
Okay. And have you gotten a history of the property, most specifically the recent history with the current owner?
Yes, we know what we know. We feel like we have a pretty good history. I don't know if we know it all, but I feel pretty confident that we've done our diligence on that with the current owner.
Okay. So, because I noticed that you mentioned planting trees, I believe you said at the back of the property. I don't know if you meant the north side.
Correct.
Right.
So you would be, I mean, that would be good for screening, obviously, but you do have the wetlands, and I don't know how far the tree clearing went back, but I mean, the big factor is the Powell Road frontage was completely clear cut, and the entire site was forested just 2 short years ago, very densely with, you know, traditional species to that site, as well as the Grand River frontage. So, and in this, you know, we are very mindful of the aesthetic of various components of the township. You obviously can't see that aesthetic here at this corner anymore.
Right.
But if you were to travel to Park Lake and Hazlitt Road, you would see a 4 corners just on the border of East Lansing with absolutely no development on it. We've had gas stations, shopping centers, strip malls, a whole assortment of things proposed over the decades. And we, in fact, do not want to cut those trees down and develop that corner. And we have many other places like that, and this would be one of them traditionally. However, the project that had proceeded here never came to the board. So I would, if I were to support this, I would want to see basically reforestation and deep buffers to make it at some point in the future look, you know, like it was once before. The facade of the building, the aesthetics of the building are not really what residents in this part of the community care about. They want that rural residential feel, and now it's, for all intents and purposes, been lost forever on that corner. I do have concerns about the density. The numbers that I've heard range from 21 to 26 units per acre. There's only one place in the township. Actually, there's no places in the township where we have that density. You would be the only one, and you'd be in a pretty unique spot to have the densest property in the township. Because downtown Okemos and the other Andev 3-tier memory care facility were never built. So everything in the township is 18 units per acre or less, I believe. So those would be some of my concerns. I'll support the rezoning. I do not like the condition. I support Trustee Jackson on that. And I would support the rezoning with that, but I have grave reservations about the site that you've picked. There are many denser areas of the township where infill development would be appropriate. And I think this was probably going to be an area where the board looked to update the future land use map. Because when we did the 2017 map, we did not focus on this area. The commercial on the corner is a holdover from many decades ago when the future land use map was last touched in the 80s. So I'll turn it back over to the supervisor. Thank you.
Other board members? Questions or comments? Treasurer?
To the applicant, I want to thank you for your interest in developing here in our township. And as Trustee Opsimer pointed out, there may be a better location that still gets you within our township and all the other demographic amenities that you see in our high average income, great schools, just a really rich community in the sense of parks, quality of life, as well as income is to be had here in Meridian Township. Have you developed in other communities here in Michigan yet?
We're in the process of 6 different markets in Michigan currently.
Okay.
None of them are open yet. We're just in the same process that we are here. Some further along than this, but we've got six markets right now.
Great. In terms of nationwide, how many communities, such as the ones you're proposing here, do you have that are currently open and operating?
About 30 that are currently open and operating. In the past, we've done a lot of skilled nursing facilities. We've been doing the independent living, assisted living, memory care for 11 or 12 years. And our expansion, we've traditionally in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, we've done projects recently in Ohio, Indiana, and then of course we're looking at Michigan, Kentucky, Tennessee, Delaware, a lot in the Maryland and Washington, D.C. area, eastern Tidewater area of Virginia. So we're expanding. We've been told we're the largest senior living developer in the nation for the last few years. But we are, right now, our plans are to stay east of the Mississippi, but that's really our primary constraint.
Okay. Well, again, we're glad that you're looking at Meridian Township. It's a great community, and hopefully we can find the right spot or make this spot work to work within our density limits to provide a first-class facility here for Meridian Township for our residents to provide these 3 levels of assistance.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, obviously we don't know what, earlier you talked about how you have these, this paradigm, these parameters, et cetera, that zero in on certain properties, et cetera. We don't know what's in there. We don't know what they say. But on the other hand, firms that do that kind of analysis often don't know the communities they're looking at either, and may not give you all the choices that you really could have in front of you for that community. You might think about somebody local to add on to that in terms of getting input. For example, we've talked about the one site off of Hagedorn Road. I mean, the township's only 6 miles across. That's by definition. So you're not going to be very far away from the site. You're going to be 3 miles away from the site you've chosen right now. You're going to be on another busy road. You're only going to be less than half a mile from Grand River Avenue, which the other one is on. There's not a lot of difference in terms of locations. The township, you may or may not know, has been rated #1 place for families to live in the country by U.S. News, et cetera. So we're very, very proud of that. And density is one of the issues that we get concerned about. But we do have spots like that, like the one that's been mentioned by Mr. Opsner and me, where you could put in something dense that may meet your requirement. In a different life, I was very much involved with nursing homes, home for the aged, et cetera, and in terms of regulation. And I know about continuums of care and everything else. Also lived it through a father-in-law who went through all stages, including memory care. So I'm very familiar with your business from an outsider's point of view. And I think that there's a place for you here, but I'm not sure yet about this site without having more information. So basically where we're at is we need to know more, and maybe you need to know more about us.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Then we're going to move on with our agenda. Thanks for your interest in being on the call.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
We're back to comments from the public. Is Mr. Geeby's with us?
I am with you. Of course, anyone in the attendee area is welcome to raise their hands, and we can take telephone calls at 517-349-1232. Not seeing any hands. Somebody that's rejoined. And I'm hearing no telephone calls.
So are we not having anyone then?
You have no calls and you have no hands.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. All right. Then we're ready for other comments from and matters from the board. I would want to mention something before we get into others. Been looking at the calendar along with the township manager, and because of the 4th of July holiday, we did not schedule a meeting the week of July 4th. Let me get my calendar up here. We have no meeting the week of July 5th. Instead, we have one the 13th and the 20th back to back. On the other hand, The 29th of June, we do not have a meeting, and that would be 2 weeks from our second meeting of this month, and also be at least a couple of weeks before the, or actually 3 weeks before the July 20th meeting. So it's been thought of that maybe it would be in everybody's interest to move the July 13 meeting to June 29th. But if other people have made plans, et cetera, we need to know that. And we wouldn't want to make any changes if it's going to interfere with people's vacations, et cetera. Mr. Opsimer.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do have prior commitments that evening.
Okay, the 29th of June?
Yes, Tuesday, the 29th.
Okay. All righty, well, be thinking about that. It sounds like it's not going to work, but in any event. Other board members, any final comments, concerns, things you want to talk about? If not, we need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Treasurer, supported by Wazinski. Any objection? And we're adjourned.
Night.
Hi, all. Y'all come back now, you hear?
The recording